you. We will call the Program and Personnel meeting for December 12th, 2022, District 128 to order. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Invitation for public comment. Anyone wishing to address? Not for our committee.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, it's on here. That's all.
No.
Never mind. Sorry.
Yeah, that's
Correct.
okay.
Should be. You are correct.
We could, but
Nope.
invitation for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the Program and Personnel Committee? No, hearing none. And Mary, we didn't have any write-ins. Okay. Okay. So first on the discussion item is the first reading of a set of board policies. It says first set. I assume there will be a second set at some point in time. There's a big batch this time.
So there was a pretty big batch. We decided just to split it into two. So we have section 2, section 4, and then section 5, and then we'll come back with 6, 7, and 8 at the next one. So there wasn't anything immediate that we needed to get in right away, and just thought I didn't want to throw 20 some at you. So
Thank you.
So, you want to maybe just run through the highlights, the overview?
sure.
of these
So all the
since
information
first
was
reading?
shared in the packet. Some of the not major changes, but some of the reasons for some of the changes had to do with changing board policy 5120, employee ethics, code of professional conduct and conflict of interest. And that was in response to Faith's law that has come into effect. So some of the language was changed in that policy 4165, but because of cross references and because 5120 was a lot of the same language is used throughout, that what drove a lot of our changes. And then some of the other changes in there, when you got to policy 5220 with substitute teachers, for retirees, it was extended longer for them to be able to substitute leaves of absence. The language was put in there when we're under a pandemic that qualifying COVID-19 related reasons, which has been in effect for absences, but now it's going into board policies. And then I think those are some of the highlights. I don't know if there's any questions on any of the other ones.
So just for anybody that might be watching the stream, this is a first reading for some updates of the board policies, some specific board policies. We received these from the Illinois Association of School Boards. They call it the press updates, and these are reviewed by quite a few attorneys that work for that group. So it helps us keep our policies up to date with any legal changes, any laws that have updated in the meantime. This first reading, we will have a month to review these. I would fully expect that either Don or Kara would probably have some detailed comments on some of these. And then we'll have a second reading in January with a vote to adopt the policies, assuming there's, if there is or isn't any adjustments in the meantime. So anyone have any comments or anything just yet, or? Go ahead.
I had just a brief comment on policy 2210, the organizational school board meeting. My understanding is the timeframe extending the reorganizational meeting from 28 days after the election to 40 days was to accommodate school boards that don't normally meet in time to meet that 28-day deadline, but it won't affect our schedule because we do regularly meet the fourth Monday of the month. That gives us plenty of time. So we won't be changing our reorganizational meeting, even though the new law allows a little bit more time.
Yeah, this just gives them extra time just in case they don't have a meeting in time, but I would expect most people would just do it at their next meeting, whatever that next meeting is.
I have a couple things. I applaud you for beginning the practice and would ask that we continue the practice of putting hyperlinks in. So for example, policy 4165, awareness and prevention of childhood sexual abuse. Part B just says information in board policy 720. So if we could hyperlink anytime we make a reference, that was just an example, but there's several places, like as we read through these. And I guess if I go through them again for second reading, I could give you a list of ones that I've noticed, but just as you go through them, if you
Yeah,
happen to find it.
Yeah, when Carol and I go through and review them, we are trying to make sure all the
Right.
hyperlinks are in there. And then even, I think this last one, we have to update a few hyperlinks and we can do that. So, but if there's any, yes, absolutely.
And then just a super minor one on 5:120. Paragraph 2, line 3. So I'll give you a moment to get there. This is employee ethics, professional and appropriate conduct, section 1. Is that the one? Yeah. So on paragraph 2, line 3, it just says, if any, because it says you have to post this on your website, if any, but we have a website. So let's just say we're going to do it.
Why am I missing?
Yeah, there should-
I'm at
Um,
5:120.
Yeah.
Yeah, there shouldn't be a problem. I'm sure that's taken out of the code.
Right.
The
I mean, it's
the
not,
school code for the.
it just
in
doesn't matter
case
to
Some
us.
district, for some bizarre reason, that it doesn't have a website. I think most do anymore.
and I can send that to you.
Yeah.
If you don't want to find it now, I'll just.
But I don't
For
think
some reason, I can't find it, but yes, we
Yeah.
will. We
there
can
shouldn't
do-
be a
we can
problem
do-
taking it
yeah.
out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually it.
Okay.
That's
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I have a minor question, and this may not even really be necessary, but it just occurred to me while I was reading through board policy 4120 for food service. Is there any need to cross-reference our equity policy or hyperlink it? Tell me if if this is a stretch, but just because we do mention competitive foods are all food and beverages that are offered by any person or organization. It goes on to say that the food service programs in participating schools, I'm kind of getting lost in the weeds here, but there were a couple mentions of School Breakfast and Lunch Program Act, the National School Lunch Program, the School Breakfast Program. Those things are all hyperlinked here, but is there any need due to our kind of expanding equity within this food service realm, especially as we've kind of increased options to certain subgroups who fall into the free and reduced lunch category? Is there any need to somehow cross-reference our equity policy within our food service policy? And please tell me if there's none.
That is a good overall, actually good question overall, whether or not just this policy. So normally press and they help us with all the cross references. They don't have the cross references for
policy.
712 because that's ours.
It's ours. Yeah.
So I know that I have been trying to, update those every so often. So let me take a look at that one and see if it should be included in the cross reference. But there are some that we've been trying to add that as a cross reference. So that is the one difference is when we don't have something that press has, we have to do our own internal on that one. So that's a good question.
Okay,
But
cool.
yeah, let me look at that one and see if it should be included in there.
Yep, just curious. Okay, thank you,
Mhm.
Bryant.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Again, we'll come back to these next month, both in committee meeting and then again at the in case there's additional things that people find. And then again at the board meeting for the second reading and official adoption. Moving on, 23-24 curriculum proposals, some fun stuff. I'm going to take one of these.
Yeah, which one?
The music
There's a
one, the
bunch.
music production.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
want to take,
that's a fun one.
I think you could teach that one.
Maybe.
it would still be fun.
Yes. So I'm going to go over the process a little bit, just so that you have a better understanding of how that works. And I might not include everything because this is my first go through, but the process actually begins in the springtime. So the departments work together, and that includes teachers and department chairs from both schools work together on an inquiry-based process, determining if there is a course that they would like to bring forth or if they want to modify or change a current course. So once both schools come to an agreement, there is a form that has to be completed, which requires them to provide a rationale, a description, the needs assessment they conducted, as well as the organizational structure and a flow chart for where the course will fit in the course sequence for that department. A student survey if they surveyed students for the course, as well as the course details, a preliminary syllabus, an evaluation as to how the course will be evaluated in the future, the ideal class size, and then implementation costs, and that's textbooks, training that may be needed, any ancillary cost, as well as any facilities that may need to be, what type of facilities they're going to need, and equipment and all of that. Once they submit that, those proposals are then brought forth to DLT. DLT engages in a process where they either accept the course, reject the course, or give feedback and say, we have more questions on this specific course. And the courses that are returned with feedback. So then in the fall, the DLT then reviews the courses that were accepted and the courses that received feedback, and hopefully they've made those revisions or addressed the feedback. And then those are the courses that are presented to you. This year we have a couple exceptions because there was a couple courses that we didn't know about in the spring, like the AP African American Studies and the AP Pre-Calc. And then there are some in here that are singletons. For instance, where there is, and I forget the title of the one at LHS that's like a mind and body course. And so Vernon Hills didn't have one, so they've developed one so that both schools have it. And then the music production is the course that was already offered at LHS, but it was formerly Guitar Ensemble 1. And so they broadened it to hopefully have more enrollment in the class and added the production piece. And that is something that VHS will be able to offer as well. So yeah, that is the process.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
I have a few. So first, as Jim said, I felt like you should allow us to audit some of these classes. So that's exciting. I have sort of one broad question. I mean, some things like data science or biotech, how are the teachers training to teach these classes? Because these are kind of very specific topics, and just
Yes.
curious about how do we expect our staff to know these subjects before they teach them?
So on the form, there is one of the requirements is training cost. And if, for instance, if we're going to have to send a teacher to, like for the AP courses, we have to send them to a week-long training. And they include that in the course proposal so that we do have, we make sure that they are appropriately trained with the content.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then just one question, mathematics department, I think it was pre-calculus honors versus advanced placement pre-calculus. So we are now replacing the honors class with an AP class, essentially.
Yes, and so AP made a bit of a shift in their AP Calc course, and there's more conceptual understanding that is taught and in the test as well. And so this pre-calc course was developed to kind of prepare students for that.
Right, thank you.
Is that in place of the honors pre-calc? So
Yes.
there will no longer be an honors pre-calc. The only option is
Is-
AP
Mhm.
or
Aren't-
college prep. College prep.
And are the AP classes all honors anyway?
that's typically how we answer what is your gifted program. It is our AP program.
Right.
And I think there was a couple, I don't know how many courses last year that were, the honors was removed and what was left was just the AP.
I do have a question. So what is the criteria that the DLT uses in selecting? Just, I mean, how many courses don't make the cut and what's the criteria that you use when you're selecting the ones to move forward?
So I think one of the criteria that was looked at this year is singleton courses. We would like kids at both campuses to be able to have opportunities, the same opportunities. For instance, the AP African American Studies course is being offered at both schools, but we have one teacher, so they travel, and so it would be great if we had a teacher that taught it at both schools, which I think we'll get there soon. But just the notion that we want kids to be able to have the same opportunity at both schools was important. We also looked at the flow and the sequence and where it fits into the like the department sequence of courses. As well as if we have, for instance, the AP pre-calc, AP and the pre-calc honors. I know the teams looked at the syllabus and looked at what AP was offering versus what we already had. And so that's why they brought forth just that course. And I think historically, I just can only speak for this year. We looked at singleton classes, and we also looked at just how it impacts the course sequence and how it would impact the courses that kids would have available to them.
So roughly how many courses did not get selected? I mean, just like were there a lot, or usually if a teacher takes the time, they take the time to make proposal, that usually they're selected?
Yeah, there was one which was swing choir, which was only being proposed at one school that didn't get the approval. And there was, hold on, let me pull it up. There wasn't too many that didn't make the cut. And then we had a lot of changes, but those were just
But for the most part, we find a place for it.
there was an earth science course. Yeah, it was the swing choir and then an earth science course and then a tutorial B. And tutorial B we're moving away from in general in terms of how we teach in our special ed students. And then the earth science course, I think we need to, both schools were not recommending it. I think philosophically we're in different spots there. So we would like we need to have more dialogue. It would impact the course sequence differently at one building than it would in the other.
So as a follow-up question to that, we're approving the ability to offer these courses, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to run because it might not have the student interest. So what we're doing is we're presenting these as options for the students, and ultimately they will make the decisions as to what runs and what doesn't based on those that select those courses.
Mm-hmm.
Like electives, right? Like, science or genetics, so elective classes, they're not.
Right, they're not part of the core.
Can I ask, is there any discussion of using technology to offer a course? For example, we only have one African American Studies teacher. Would the use of technology give us the opportunity to offer it to a wider group of students at both buildings? Also, would technology give us the opportunity for a class, for example, that's only offered as one semester at one building, but offered at 2 semesters at the other building? If there are students that want to opt into the full year course, they could use technology to do that, or vice versa. If they only have room in their schedule to take a 1 semester course that's offered at Vernon Hills, but they're at LHS. Can you talk a little bit about how technology might help us expand and
Yeah, so I
offer
think
more opportunities to more students?
Yeah, so I think this is something CLC does, right? So for instance, students at their new advanced tech campus may be taking a class where the professor is physically at the CLC at Grays Lake. And so they have like it's almost like a streaming service where the professor is meeting virtually with them. I do think that is something we can explore. It wasn't brought forth in any of the proposals, but that I do think that is an option that we can definitely explore.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that's a better way to do things. I was just wondering if any of the proposals that is part of the discussion. It really is just wondering. It's not suggesting that I think
Yeah.
that I would know a better way to use technology. I just, when I hear about that we only have one teacher, my first thought is, well, we know how to do this now.
Mhm.
For certain things, it's very difficult, like something that involved a science lab. But for other courses, it might be something that you would recommend or that the teachers might be open to recommending just to expand our offerings.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we can reference or guide teachers to in the spring if we have any singleton courses or something that would benefit from something like that.
There are schools in the area who are teaching, for example, government. Students have a requirement to take a government class, but they also want to take band, and they have a conflict in their schedules. They're literally being able to take a 7th class or even an 8th class by taking an online course that's offered by the teachers at the school, and they're actually teaching online. So the lesson happens during the day, but the kid might not attend the lesson until later or another class period overnight sometime.
I'm
is
not
happening.
surprised to hear that because it is something that I know at the university level. My junior at University of Illinois, the lectures are posted online.
Mhm.
Other work is done in groups, collaboratively in line, in person or in lab groups. But the lecture portion is strictly posted online, and they can take those classes at any time. So I guess I'm not surprised that in terms of educational philosophy, now that we have the technology, it's sort of expanding the way that courses are designed.
A part of it is time shifting, part of it is space shifting. So
Right.
the time shifting, you can take it at a time that's more opportune. The space shifting is where, you have students at both campuses and they want to take the class. Maybe if you have full sections of both campuses, that teacher can move from one campus to the other. But if you only have half a section worth of students at each campus, could you somehow, through technology, hold that class anyway and accomplish that full section of, whatever 20 some students.
Yeah, I like
at both
the
campuses.
idea of being able
Yeah.
to expand an opportunity. If there's 2 or 3 students at one building, I'd rather use technology to give them the opportunity that they wouldn't otherwise have. I know that there are so many people that are traumatized by remote learning, but there are pieces where technology can give us opportunities to give students an experience that we wouldn't otherwise be able to give them. So,
And we are doing, that, in working with our union, our teachers union, we have offered that for, there are a couple classes like that where we will not be able to run it at one building, but we have it at the other building and the teacher is able to do that. But again, working cooperatively with our union, we're able to set those classes up. So there are some.
One other thing that we would want to explore, ISBE has some rules and regulations on offering full-time online courses. And so when we set I forget what that annual plan is, to be able to offer online classes, we'd want to make sure we have
Yeah.
and everything ready to provide those options should they come available.
I know it's not a lot of rural schools, high schools especially, will do things like that because they can't possibly staff to have a broad enough range of classes that many of us are fortunate to have. So they'll contract with somebody else, another school or another nearby university or college or something to be able to offer some classes they couldn't otherwise do. So it's not, it's happening in bits and pieces in a lot of places. So it's worth keeping in mind, I think.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else have? Okay, thank you. Look forward to that. We, next on the agenda, employment of employees. These are standard comings and goings for the month. Anyone have any questions or concerns with that? We'll be voting on those later. Have a couple educational tours.
Nobody
Anybody wanna
notices,
comment
Dan.
on those?
Do it fast.
Good timing, Dan.
Mhm.
Yes. So we have the All-State Musicians in January. We'll be heading to Peoria, as well as our LHS softball team. Spring break is going to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. This is one that the coach is very excited. It didn't make it to the last board meeting, but it made it here. We had a little snafu with the transportation, but we figured it out, right, Dan? We're gonna drive the white buses down to Tennessee.
All that.
Well, wasn't that an interesting
Yes.
reply?
Aren't they always driven? I thought they flew.
I mean, that-
You're gonna drive, Dan?
Yeah, so
Legally,
legally
but
we're
not you.
covered and we can drive
No.
it. The
Yeah,
coach
not Dan.
buses were insanely
Yeah,
expensive.
sure.
And so this was the best way we could find to get them down there. There aren't a lot of girls going, and so they'll be able to drive the buses down.
It's just one other area where we're seeing costs
Mhm.
affect what we can offer. And I'm glad that the coach is able to get the girls down to Tennessee for this trip. For the previous trip, I'm interested, it is both LHS and VHHS musicians that will be traveling on this trip. And I noticed in the budget sheet
Mhm.
that part of it is going to be LHS expenses. And I wasn't sure, did we already approve that on a separate tour request, or is that just going to be part of this one,
Yeah, it all comes together. It's all coming together on this
on
one.
this one? Okay,
Mhm.
perfect. Thank you.
And that's a good thing.
Yes.
Those kids will have a ball. That's a great
And
experience.
it's nice that musicians and performers from built,
Mhm.
LHS and VHHS will get a chance to
together.
spend some time together.
It's good.
Road trip bonding.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Nothing like a road trip to bond.
Any other questions on these educational tours?
No, I just want to say how helpful those budget sheets are.
Yeah,
you.
those are really nice.
Thank you. Michelle works really hard on that. She does a phenomenal job.
Noted and appreciated.
Okay. Quick conversation here about the Power School Insights platform, Unified Insights.
You're assuming it's going to be quick. I like your
All
optimism.
right. All right.
I'll turn it over.
All right, so good evening, everyone. The following is a proposal to make a purchase for a data visualization platform that would begin to help us to further utilize data models and put data in the hands of our teams for our LST teams, as well as hopefully in the future for our teachers. As you may or may not know, data is an important tool as we look at MTSS and begin to offer interventions, as well as to appropriately evaluate those interventions for the students. Right now, we are utilizing measures in regards to evaluating programs and looking at trends throughout the building. However, they are in pieces. So we have a data that is in Panorama. Then we may have data that is in Power School. Then we may have data in another platform. With the Insights platform, which is connected to Power School, this will allow us to further take the data from our student management system, but then also begin to input data from our Panorama. So instead of seeing pieces of the child, and when I say pieces, sometimes we're looking at attendance, sometimes we're looking at grades, sometimes we're looking at behavior, we'll be able to see the whole child. So we'll be able to see performance for surveys, we'll be able to see test scores, we will be able to see grades, attendance, and other performance indicators. This data platform will also allow our teams, as well as administration, to begin to look at what are our needs at the universal or the tier 1 level. So right now, when we're looking at students, it is very specific to students, but we're not doing a really good job in looking at our universal practices and evaluating those practices to really determine what are the interventions that are needed for our students. So this platform will begin to allow us to do some data analysis, as well as look at some root causes instead of focusing on the collection and bringing in the pieces of data. So we can really truly look at student performance.
So is this software aggregating data or is it giving us new data?
So it is going to do two things. It is going to aggregate data, but it is also going to allow us to uniform our data to present new data that we possibly haven't been looking at before.
Okay. Does it give us the opportunity to replace something else?
So at this time, we don't have anything that will allow us to do some of the things that this platform will allow us to do.
Mhm.
Right now, when we started looking at the evaluation of our intervention programs, and really taking a look at our MTSS structure,
And that abbreviation stands for,
our multi-tiered system of supports.
thank you.
Yep. We really do not have a data platform at this time. We do have a data system that is called Tableau, that is part of PowerSchool. However, Tableau takes a lot of time to create reports. And it's like a time delay in regards to getting this data into the hands of our LST teams or administration, or even some of the teams that are meeting during those PLC times on Wednesdays. This platform will be able to put the data in the hands of those teams, and they will be able to look at that data as our data as a district, data as a building, data by grade level, data by course, data by student, right there in real time.
Couple of quick comments that I'll make. Well, one is if anyone has sticker shock, when you look at this, over half of it is a one-time cost for implementation. But also realize as I look, this is not just a 1 year. This contract actually covers a year and a half.
Yeah.
So it's, moving forward will be, the cost will be much lower than this particular cost. This is, a larger piece because it is being implemented. The implementation costs and things like that.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, and part of the reason for the high implementation costs is that there's data that may not be in PowerSchool that we may have from surveys or from other sources. And part of that is to help build all of that and build some history into PowerSchool. So that moving forward, you do have some other older data in there. So the implementation is there's kind of the insights, the piece for PowerSchool then drives the MTSS system in PowerSchool, but it does take a lot of time to implement it. And it's like a 6 months of time with our team and their team. And so it is because we're trying to get a lot of other past data into that system. And like Jim said, it's a one-time cost. And then moving forward, we're really signing a 3-year agreement, kind of a 3.5-year agreement. So it's the implementation plus we're agreeing to working, with them for 3 years based off of their normal rate increases, which in the history of PowerSchool. So PowerSchool is our student information system. We also use them for special education. We have a lot of stuff in there. They've been about 4% over the past 2-3 years.
I also want to reference the last 2 times we've had data presentations and we've been able to focus in on some of the students who aren't meeting either state standards or something else like that. And we say, okay, so now we know who these students are. This will allow us to go to that next level and saying, okay, so here's the 8 kids who are at tier 1. What kind of intervention? Is it going to be a reading intervention? Is it going to be something else? And to be able to track it in a consistent way across all of our LSTs. So I'm the team did a great job reviewing multiple software tools and recommending this particular one.
So I guess I'm not understanding it. I just like it in very plain language. How is this program going to take information that we've either received from Panorama or they already have and create something new that is going to drive instruction and try to intervene? Because if that is what this, I guess my fear is when I read this is we do a lot of surveys and we have a lot of data, but we don't really talk about what we're doing with the data. So I don't want to get in, I don't feel I can support something if it is another piece of data collection as opposed to something that is cost effective, something we can't do on our own, and gives us information that is new that will actually go and change something. That's not what I'm seeing. So just in a very plain, like what kind of information are we getting? And how does Power School put it into something that we can utilize?
So I think it'd be probably best if I use it in an example. So currently when we are working or looking at individual kids, and let's go back to the survey that we did for SEL or even for climate and culture. And one of the big things that came out was a sense of belonging. So right now, when we are utilizing the data, we are only really looking at it specifically for students, because right now, although we can use parts of Tableau to look at it at a universally, it is really not in the hands of that team. And so what this data collection or data visualization will be able to do is you will be able to see right there on a tablet or on your device, it to be breaking down so they can look at specifically what's going on at grade 9. So, or to be more specific or aligned to the SEL information, we identified like our African-American students and our students with special needs that had unfavorable responses for a sense of belonging. So this data tool will allow teams to look specifically at those groups and begin to identify early warning systems. So is it attendance? Is it student participation? Is it student engagement? And all of that information will be right there versus to what the teams are doing right now is looking at different systems and looking at the data in this system, then looking at the data in our student management system and not looking at the data all together to look at the entire whole child. This platform brings all the data together, but it is also easily accessible. And that is one of the things when you're looking at an MTSS, you want to do two things. You want to have the data right there, easily accessible for whether it be a teacher, whether it be a social worker, whether it be an administrator, so that they can look at it from a universal all the way down to an individual student.
I guess I'm having a hard time not understanding that if Panorama was done anonymously and we only have subgroups based on whatever demographics they included, how is Power School going to get this down anonymously into a student? I mean, because I'm assuming with MTSS, you're talking about creating a plan for students. So how does this information break it down to individual students?
So it'll allow us to, even before breaking it down to students, allow us to see if it is at a tier 1. So if it is at a
University.
if it's at universal, so is it at a building level? Is it at a grade level? Which is what we are actually supposed to be doing before we even look at it specifically for each individual student. So it may just be that we may have a group of SPED students that may not be connecting with, I don't know, they may not be connecting with PE, or we may find that they're not engaged in any extracurricular activities. We may find that out of 300 special ed students, and I'm just making numbers up, that only 40 of those students are in extracurricular activities. That might be an area for us to say, oh, wow, we need to look at we need to look at improving those students to have them more connected at that level. Or it may be, if we're looking at a sense of belonging and tailoring it down to the student, we may not be able to identify that student from the anonymous survey. But as we identify other performance indicators, we may be able to identify students in that cohort or in that demographic of students to be able to say, okay, we need to further provide some type of interventions, because we may identify them from attendance. It may be discipline. Again, it may be the lack of them being involved in the extracurricular activities, which we get from our 5-star data, which is also another data platform that is not connected right now to Power School. Or it just may be from some other information that we're able to gather and look at. And so that is how we would be able to further expand upon what we now have, if that makes sense.
Could I offer a couple points? So one, as a reminder, some of the panorama surveys are anonymous, some are not. So there are some panorama surveys that are tied to a very specific student, just to FYI. Second one is just the question, I can't remember who asked it. Could this replace another system that we have? I think the honest answer right now is maybe, but we don't know yet. That's an honest answer. It might be one day, but we need to kind of see how this works in real life.
You would have to create that.
Right. We don't have, it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. You would have to find a way of aggregating data that we don't have right now if we were going to do it in-house.
No, we do have the data. It's just in a different section.
Correct.
We would
How do you put it
figure out
together?
How to put it together.
And the third one is from my lens, like overall, this is like just a hole that we've had in our system. This is data that we've not been tracking. This system will help us track this data. I can't tell you, I'm going to say it anyways. How many times we were in a meeting last year and Denise appropriately would ask us for, what about this data? And we'd just kind of look around and be like, I don't think we track that. I don't think we have that data. And I was like, okay, that's something we should look at. So I think this is a key system and to allow us to track data that we've not been tracking, that we should be tracking in regards to MTSS and for the whole student. And I'm talking a language that I don't totally understand, right? But I know this is a hole in our system that we've had in terms of tracking this data. And like, even if you pay attention to a lot of the presentations we've had, right, you will hear points of, there's not a lot of good data there. Like if you go back and re-listen to that, you'll hear that over and over again, because it's true. There's a lot of data that we just don't have. So is this going to be new data? Yes, but this is data that we feel that we should have been having this time. Does that make sense?
I think
So
the
is-
other, I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask, so is it correct to say that if we identify an individual student and we know that we want data on that individual, we can go to different systems and pull it, but we can't address it from a systemic level because we can't group that data. Right now, all we can do is get individual data of somebody that we know we're looking at, as opposed to the aggregated data so that we can drive the system.
Almost serving as a filter. You can look at your attendance data and see, okay, it seems like after 6 absences is where it's really interfering with student grades. So you can set a trigger. So anytime a student has a 6th absence in one class, it alerts the counselor and it alerts those things. So it's a proactive way to use data also, in terms of, once we know for our environment, what are some of those areas where it's a pivot point, the software can do work for us. So then the counselor is spending more time talking with the student about why they might be not attending, rather than pulling data from 4 spreadsheets.
And just to piggyback, thank you for Denise for saying that, because that was another big piece. I know that a lot of the conversation tonight has revolved around the data and where the data is being pulled from. But I also want to just mention the fact that right now, the focus is heavily on the data collection and not the data analysis of what is going on with that data. So yes, we do have that data, but teams are not taking the time to have really in-depth discussions about what that data is telling us, because the focus is on that data collection. And for us to move towards the evaluation of all of our programs, plus any programs that we add moving forward, we would like for those teams to begin to have those in-depth conversations about what is going on universally, all the way down to the individual child. But then also, what are we not doing systematically or programmatically for our students in our community?
So does this also have the reverse possibility? Because we keep talking about what we're not meeting. Can we see what is working through this data too?
Yes, yes,
Through powers, through the way that they're doing what is working and try to be generative with it?
absolutely. Yes.
I think that's a great question, because there is so much that we do well. This does allow us to address gaps, especially where there's equity concerns, but it also lets us see what's working really well. What do we want to either recognize or build upon or expand or roll out across, multiple groups. So I really appreciate that point. It not only shows us the areas where we want to improve for the right reasons, but it helps identify what's working well to build on that and systematize it.
I just think sometimes we get mired in the word data and we forget that it's about action.
Yes.
And I want to make sure that I am not supporting something that is another just piece of data collection as opposed to moving to an action.
Believe me, I would not even bring anything forth without it moving to action. And so I've seen it to whereas we've used whether it's Google Sheets, whether it's Tableau, and I have nothing wrong with that. And I'm pretty sure that we're going to utilize that. But I truly believe in putting data in the hands of our stakeholders so that they can immediately see what is needed, what is working well, what's not working well, and then move forward with the actions in a real or prompt time. Because right now we're responding to things either towards the end of the year or in the, after, if it's after first semester, then it's January, February, and then we're already behind the 8 ball. But if we're looking at it to, let's just say it's a pause teacher for our intervention, she right there can have her whole entire caseload on this program and be able to see how her kids are doing, not only in her pause class, but even across the all their classes and throughout the system. She'll be able to see attendance, things of that nature, and be able to, whether it's have conversations with individual kids or be able to identify, oh, wow, they're struggling in math and algebra 1, and talk to the algebra 1 teacher about what's going on in that algebra class and be able to support them in that intervention.
I think an added benefit from the way I understand it is that this tool also allows us to kind of view trends that are generated right across large groups of students. So at this more macro level than maybe we've had the opportunity to see before, and with much less time. What I'm hearing is that Tableau and maybe some of these other systems that we use to gather the data, they're very time intensive, work intensive, and I think there's only certain people trained in, being able to generate those said reports, right? So from kind of that zoomed out viewpoint, not only can we identify these trends, but we can also anticipate pitfalls for the future, right? When you identify a trend happening, say in 9th grade, you can kind of see where how that's going to flow through and kind of work its way through the entire education experience for that group of students. And that could be very telling for future groups of students as well. So to me, I think this seems like, I don't know why we wouldn't want to have the advantage of seeing information presented in that way. And it just seems like a wonderful shortcut to get there. So am I correct in understanding though, that's kind of how, right, it's really to, like you said, see these universal trends and be able to apply universal supports within those subgroups.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. The best way to say it is it provides visibility of what is going on at the moment.
I have.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I had some easy ones and then some low hanging fruit and maybe some other things to think about. So low hanging fruit, I think these are things I've brought up when we have software contracts. Is when I saw the contract, it looked to me like it did not have a cap identified on annual increases, and I think we have to put that in there. And typically what we do in industry is no more than 3% or CPI, whichever is lower. I mean, we are held to a 2.5% CPI or lower, right? So I think we should cap that. The second is they have a implementation time period. When does our licensing with them actually begin? And it should not begin until their setup is done. And the third is, as you're thinking about rolling out and using, are you planning to, put in data for all 3,500 students on day one? Or are you going to pilot it with a small group first, maybe figure out how we will actually use it? Because, you guys are data people, but your teachers may not be. And that can get very overwhelming to them, and at that point, they won't use it. And it's not just a teacher or non-teacher, there are data people and there are non-data people. And for the non-data people, it's very hard to get through that other side and actually make meaningful decisions based on what they're seeing. So have you thought about there's the why do we invest and why do we invest now, right? That there's kind of two sides to that coin. So have you considered kind of starting with a small group, piloting that, and then going full blown?
So right now, as once, if, this is approved, then as part of, the rollout plan, part of that, the rollout plan as well as the professional development plan will be the identification of, who needs the training and then what type of training that they may need. One of the things that I plan to do, for instance, with, our LST, teams are to work with them, not only understanding, how to utilize the data within the program, but then, as they are holding those team meetings, what questions are they looking at? What should we draw our attention to as we look at the data, and really working on that data modeling for, our teams to help them with that. I know also too, that in addition to our LST teams, our intervention, our staff members that do our interventions such as Pause and Flex are also looking at, how we can utilize this data as well too. So we'll be looking at, what those performance indicators should look like for Pause as well as for Flex, but then also too, how the staff members can look at, that data daily or weekly, and then what kind of questions or what type of information they should be looking at that time. And then once we start off with the rollout of, those two groups, in addition to administrators, then we'll begin to roll it out to more teachers. And then hopefully moving forward with, as we, begin to build upon our MTSS, looking at those grade level teams and then identifying from there. So it will be a slow rollout just because of also our structure that we're utilizing as well too. So everybody won't be trained as we roll this out, because we want to build upon that, infrastructure of systems and supports.
Yeah, I think it can be difficult at the high school level to pick a core group of students to monitor something like this, because you never know when a student is going to start having an attendance problem. Or so many of our courses are multi-grade or things like that. And also when we have to migrate that data over, it sometimes is easy to migrate 800 freshmen as it is 80 select freshmen or something like that. So for many other schools who in the area who are using this particular software, they recommended moving all your data over and then tiering the implementation groups, rather than not moving all students and doing it that way. So we are trying to have tiered implementation, but all kids' data will be moved first.
That's why you have the licenses for the 3,500 kids from the start.
Okay. I might suggest that at some point after we're well into this and we're comfortable with it, maybe bring back some examples of what this looks like. I know it can be difficult because you have to redact student names and things like that, but even screenshots to be able to help us better understand what we can do with the system versus, what we had to do before. Cause I think it's a powerful, I'm coming from it, from having used this type of software and seeing the value of it. So I guess I have a different lens on this, having seen it, but I think it would be helpful for some of the others to actually see what this looks like and how this changes what we do. I think in my mind, one of the big things is it's more real time. It's within our student information system. That's a real time system. So you're not waiting for the latest data upload into Tableau and then waiting for somebody to create a report and then looking at that and realizing, oh, maybe if we look at it a little differently, and by that time the data's a week old and it's looking at it, these visualizing this data that's in real time, I think is pretty valuable.
That brought me to actually another question, sorry. But to add to what Jim was saying in terms of examples, it will be, I think, good to see how different audiences are looking at data. So what does an administrator want to look at versus what an LSD want to look at versus, I think
A team.
that would give a good rounded picture to our, our taxpayers of how this is being utilized. But the second question I had is because what I'm running into my day job is you're using Power School's software here, but you're going to pull in data from survey systems that are not Power School systems. Sometimes those companies end up charging us money for taking data from there. Have we looked at that, and are we sure that we're not going to run into additional costs from the survey systems and other companies for transferring data from their system into this one?
So I believe all of that is part of the cost in regards to integration of the systems and that ongoing integration for that year. I don't think that is an extra cost, but I can go back and just find out, but I'm pretty sure, I'm like 85% sure. Just
It
because.
needs to be like in the contract.
Yes.
Even if it is 0, it needs to be lined out and said 0, because I'm seeing this growing trend of when two different companies have to partner to get data from each other, then they sometimes both end up charging the customer money
Yeah.
It's a good call.
to do that.
Yeah, in these situations, and this is just from my experience, that it doesn't happen with data in an educational environment. If you're contracting, it's not like we're buying data from Panorama, it's our data, and legally it has to be our data. We own the data legally, so we can bring that in. We can do with that data whatever we want to. So it's not, I know where you're coming from, and I've seen those kinds of things happen in other places, but in this educational world and the types of systems that we gather data from for these kind of systems, it's just never, that's never even on the radar.
I have
That
just a comment. Oh, go ahead.
But I would still think it's better to know and put that in writing, because like the scenario I'm talking about, also the data is still owned by the company, but they just happen to be
Yeah.
in 2 different systems.
In Illinois,
because
we
that's
have
where
to,
SAS is going.
our contracts with data providers require them to give us ownership of all our data, all our student data. It's an Illinois requirement. So we would own that data no matter what, whoever we're dealing with. So that's where, some of the laws that have been put into place for data privacy and whatnot for schools in particular, require them to provide us ownership of that data.
Quick comment. We created policy. We created the equity policy, racial equity policy, laid out a strategic plan, and then we asked for metrics to measure all of this. And when I was looking through all of this, I was thinking to myself, this allows us an opportunity to provide the metrics or to provide data to support the metrics that we have set out to see whether or not we're actually having an impact. And I just think that we've asked them to do something, and this is a tool that allows them to do it.
Can I ask, just to take a step back to and put this cost in perspective? How does the cost for this add-on to Power School compare to the overall cost of our current use of Power School?
BK probably would know that better off the top of his head than I would, but I mean, our current cost for Power School is what, 2030? With our current,
I can look it up right now.
Sorry to give you a left field question, but
I mean,
my,
it's a significant system. I don't want to I mean, it's
It's
probably
deep.
not the
But
most
w-
expensive system.
but we're in
It's-
the annual maintenance phase, as Jim pointed out, it's already implemented. So this cost is both the implementation and then the annual fee going forward. So I was just trying to put it in perspective of what this cost is to the total cost of Power School.
Mhm.
I think this adds 28,000 annually.
It does, but to what? To what number is what I'm asking?
It's actually not 28, it's 2/3 of 28,000, whatever that is.
Only for the first year. After that, it is.
It's 28 annual fee.
Following up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did
I
I
think
read that wrong?
it looks to
Yeah.
me like they've allowed like a 6-month implementation,
Right.
basically, so. the
Okay, then I
license-
misread that, yeah.
We're about 48,000 for the year right now with Power School. I don't have the updated numbers, but from last year.
It's roughly.
So that includes our Power School, everything that we have with Power School. And then also the special education piece in Power School. There's also in there are some other plugins in Power School that we don't pay directly to Power School, but there's other like pieces that help with like student fees and other stuff. But the actual Power School piece, so it's gonna be, 48 roughly plus adding this 20 some in there.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions, comments? I'll be anxious to see the results, what we can do with that. Okay, moving on. Public participation at Board of Education meetings, and this is a topic that we sort of discussed bringing to the group. And I think if nothing else, I think the reality is we should make a decision and then make sure that our policy and our procedures are aligned with that decision. I think my understanding is there's maybe a recommendation to eliminate the email public comments. They've served, a great purpose during COVID, but I think to get back to what would be considered a normal process for our board meetings. That doesn't mean that we wouldn't accept emails from people and wouldn't read them and wouldn't, consider the comments as they come in, but just the fact that we would have, people emailing us and then with the expectation that somebody reads that into the record. I think we make our meetings pretty accessible and allow people to attend. And
Well, to your point, I think the returning to our pre-COVID procedure aligns with our current policy.
right,
And while it served our community when it was difficult to be here in person, that's no longer the case. And I'm in favor of returning to our pre-COVID public participation policy. I hope people will continue to participate and I hope they'll continue to email us.
mhm.
Yeah, they can always email us.
It just won't be part of being read publicly at the meeting. I think it's time for us to
And-
return to that.
Our policy actually did stay the same. It was our guidelines that changed.
Mhm.
So this change in practice will not require a change. I mean, it's It
Yeah.
will just be
Won't need it-
changing our
yeah,
practice.
we won't need it,
Yeah, we'll
yeah.
update. our
We'll update the
guidelines.
guidelines that are linked in our agenda and our
We don't have to take
website,
any action.
but we don't have to,
Right.
we don't have to do anything with our policy.
Is any-
In terms of practice, there's one of the things that we ask is that they sign in. Just so we understand they are not required to sign in. They're also not required to identify themselves in any way. It's nice if they do, but
Mhm.
we can't require it.
So anyone have any concerns? Otherwise, we'll direct the administration to update
Mhm.
So
the
actually,
guidelines
we're,
and we'll-
we're going to discuss it tonight. And we will update it next month, not
next
this month,
Not
yeah.
for this month.
Because I'm open to the discussion, but I think discussing it and changing it tonight is not fair to the community. I
Agreed.
think we have the discussion, we agree by consensus that after the next meeting, it will be
Yeah.
changed, but we're not going to change it
Yeah.
for the next meeting. It'll be the one.
Yeah.
after.
And even though we're streaming here,
Yeah.
I agree with you. We should have that public at the board, at the standard.
Yeah,
board meeting.
again, just
Yeah.
because the timing is because we're having committee and board meeting
Yeah.
tonight.
Right.
I
Right.
just feel like it's a little too
Separate.
fast to discuss
Right,
it and
right,
change it all
right.
in the
No, I
same
agree.
fell swoop.
Okay.
Is it listed
Um,
as for action though, on the regular board meeting?
No.
Oh, I thought it was, sorry.
No, there's not a, so
No, there won't be any
I
action.
stated
No,
before, the
that's-
policy is still the same.
Right.
It's just that guidelines are based off of meeting virtually. And then we updated the guidelines when we met in person that we would still accept the email and we can update the guidelines and have those posted.
Okay.
Just for information purposes, is anybody else having problems with the
Yeah.
Wi-Fi?
Yeah, all of a sudden.
Yeah.
my
Yeah,
computer
it
shut down.
hesitates once in
I'm,
a while.
I'm trying to run the meeting here and it's,
Yeah, I'm looking. and stuff.
I don't know, I'm downloading a movie. It's working great.
Okay,
Honestly,
and then,
I'm like,
You're the problem.
I'm trying to take notes and I can't take notes. So I will.
Is there
so next on
something
the
you should be
agenda, just so we keep moving here, we have the future agenda items. There's a list of things for January, February, March. You can take a look at those. And this is for the PMP committee. Treasury item. So if anyone has any other things we might want to toss on here.
No.
I was out before and now I'm back in.
Mine is
Yeah, it's been-
It's just slow.
Bo, is Phil straight? Okay.
Yeah,
You're probably plugged in.
well, the stream's plugged in, but I'm doing fine, so.
It might be
I'll
board
poke around.
system.
Yeah, it could be board book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, so that's, all the agenda items for the program and personnel. So I will adjourn the, PMP and hand it over to Casey.
This ought to be interesting. So we'll call to order the Facilities and Finance Committee meeting for Monday, December 12th. And now my computer just went completely.
I just
Well,
got,
we've already handled the pledge.
diligent.
That's the good news. Any public comment for Facilities and Finance? No. Okay. Well, if I remember correctly, the first item was transition pathways.
I have
Hopefully
a
this
paper
will
cap
come
if
back.
you want it.
That would be great. That would actually be very helpful because
And you are correct, the first item is.
there were some great pictures on there. This is very
Yes,
exciting.
it's very exciting.
my
Thank
dry cleaner's right next
Appreciate
door.
that.
So
I remember you saying
I
that.
peered in.
Convenient. Well, today was the beginning of the
That's tough.
second week
There's people. in there.
of transition pathways at their new site. Very exciting over there. The smiles on the kids' faces, I've been over there. We're still, tweaking a few things here and there. But please stop by and take a look when you walk in the door. It's a big open space, community space with mobile tables, everything on rollers, and they have a TV, portable TV screen to do individual sections. You'll see a residential kitchen, a commercial kitchen, as you walk in, and a long hallway, which goes to the different meeting rooms and classroom spaces. With teacher workspace in the back, with office space. But very exciting, laundry service. In the one room, they actually have a Murphy bed cabinets built in a wall and the bed will fold down. They can, learn how to make a bed. Do their laundry, things like that. So very exciting. over there, so.
We're going to have our January committee meetings there.
But
don't-
they're working on a-
Yeah,
We're looking at an
You're
open
having a-
house.
You're having open,
Open
like a,
house.
A separate open house,
There you go.
only because it would be really difficult to stream from there. We
Sure.
would love to host it there, but technically we don't think we could pull it off. So we are planning, I think Mary is looking at dates in February.
So, and just to share, one of their first activities on Monday, their first day in there was that the students all worked and they made cookies, put together little welcome gifts, and they went to the neighboring businesses. And then even across the street to where Panera is and Sports 11, and went to
Mhm.
those businesses to make some connections. And I think they did make a couple connections with businesses. And so just kind of, hey, we're here. This is what we do. And it was great for the students. And so hopefully maybe make some more connections with businesses, and that's an important integral part of
Can I
transitions.
ask, I'm assuming I know the answer, but just to be explicit, the same security procedures are in place as any of our buildings. So my concern is just, I want to be explicit because it's a retail type location that somebody off the street couldn't be confused and just walk in and have access. to
Correct.
that
And,
facility.
and we're working on that and working on updating our procedures for all of what we would normally do at a school with regards to drills and how to do lockdown. And some of it was difficult to put some of that exact in place without being in the building. But, we're working with Christy Steiner on that, our coordinator. We'll have all those in place. So.
So I would never drop by because I would assume, first of all, I wouldn't do that at any of our facilities, but I wouldn't be able to just
No.
walk in off.
No,
the-
no, you can't. No, it's fob access, for front and rear. So there's, everything's recorded, anybody that comes. You can make your way into the vestibule, then you have to be let in.
Got it.
Just so, same as the school.
Mhm.
So.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other comments?
But I want to be clear, you're always welcome to stop by,
Hmm.
but you shouldn't be able to just get in.
You shouldn't be able to.
That's the point, thank you.
Yes, excellent point. All right, moving on to capital projects prioritization update. This is a process we've been discussing and working on for quite some time.
Mhm. Mhm, mhm.
Some-
I'd love to have a further
Fill in.
comment to give you a bridge here, Dan, but I can't seem to open it, so.
That's what I was trying to eat during PMP.
Mhm.
Sorry, my board books is starting to load on me.
mine's working okay now.
See.
I'm a little lagged. So, really what I wanted to give you was an update on where we're at with the capital project prioritization. We believe that we finalized the criteria, and what we've done is I've attached in there that you'll be able to see soon, I think, a flow chart in terms of what the whole process looks like. And so really, the idea is a capital project need identified, and then it's filtered either through it's either asset preservation, so it's like maintaining the roof, maintaining the windows, maintaining the carpets, or it's a health and safety issue that we would try to take care of urgently, and then or it's considered other, and that's where you get things that really don't fall into the other categories. It's not a health safety issue. It's not necessarily about asset preservation, but it's just an area that somebody would like us to take a look at and renovate mostly, or potentially consider an add-on. And so if it's a health and safety issue, or if it's about asset preservation, it filters to Mark so that he can put it into his long-term plan, which is largely what his plan is made up of maintaining our assets. The second category, health and safety, would go right away to Mark, and then everything else goes through this prioritization process. And so really what it starts with is still loading here. It starts with a form that we're piloting this right now with the buildings to try to see really a form asking a bunch of questions, getting after all that criteria. And so having them provide information. So right now what we're piloting with the project, one at each school, to kind of see how it goes. And we're learning a lot of helpful things of like, oh, that's great that you answered that question. That was not the question I really wanted to ask. And so we're refining some of that now. And so the idea is, over the next couple weeks, be able to refine that process and then start getting the projects flowing through the process. And so they'll go through submitting the request. And then what we're going to have is a committee made up of largely DLT members, our leadership team, that's going to review these and score them based on the criteria. And so we wanted to kind of pilot with the one project at each school, just to kind of see how it works and pilot through that and see how that goes. With the end result is having a list of projects with scores on them that are going to prioritize. And that's how it's going to be prioritized based on our criteria. And so, if you eventually get into that flow chart that you can see, it'll come together in that way. We do the prioritization process, which is the process of going through the committee, getting scored. Once that's done, then we can add on timing and review, because that prioritization is just for us to say, this is the most important thing we want to do next, outside of those other categories. But when we actually do it and how we do it can all depend. Meaning, if we all thought, man, the most important thing that we want to do next is build a new high school, well, the timing and the
He's
cost for
joking.
that. Yeah, but just to give you an example, like that's not something we can just do ourselves. But if you do, and even looking at a project, there's some projects that can fit within the summer. There's some projects that just can't. There's some projects that are supposed to fit in with the summer and they don't, but it depends on the timing of the project and how big of scope and how involved it is and what kind of impact to the school environment it would be. So once we add the timing and the cost data, then we can develop short-term plans. And the short-term plan is really going to be our summer capital list. And the long-term plan is ones that are like that really long list that goes out many years. And so then we review those plans with DLT and then they come to the board. They would come to the board to review. So we feel pretty good about that process. However, we are still flying the plane while rebuilding it. And so come January, we are going to have our list of summer capital projects but we will likely not have this process fully fleshed out with every project that wants to be considered. So we're going to have to do a little bit of be doing a little bit of both. There's some projects that we've identified already that we want to bring in January to talk about for summer, but that's before this process is really been finalized.
Well, but it kind of has to work that way because we have to be able to go for bid for certain things. We have to leave enough time for Mark and his team to prep what needs to be done over the summer. So I'm very comfortable with that. I just think it's really important because as we all know, we do not have unlimited funds to spend, and to have a formal process that we can assess our ongoing capital needs is incredibly important for the district. And this takes the long step towards that.
Yeah. And to be quite honest, to be very honest, like we want to do this well, and to do it well is going to take more time than I originally thought it would take us to put a system like this together. And so we're not building this system to just do it 1 year. Like this is a system that we will use forever. You know what I mean? I mean, we'll tweak it, but like the idea, this is a system that we'll be used on an ongoing basis going forward. And so those things take time. And we just we've had competing things in the last 6 months that have caused us to spend time on maybe some other things. And this gets set aside for a period of time and then gets focused back on, but we're focused on it now.
Yep.
And I feel like it's in a good place. And so the next thing that you will see with this is in my mind, you'll see a prioritized list. I don't foresee us being able to give you that in January, because that's January 9th, because I just don't logistically see that being possible. But what we will have though is our tentative list for summer. So again, we're flying the plane while we're still building it, or rebuilding it, I guess you would say. So that's my update.
Okay. Any comments or questions?
That is good. As just a clarification, so when we see the plans that are presented to the board, you will have a list of both things, right? The projects that you did prioritize, the cost for that, and your recommended timing for that, but you'll also have a list of projects that kind of did not get prioritized. Because I think it's important for us to see why something got in and also why something got out.
Well, if it's in the third category, if it's not an asset preservation and if it's not health and safety, it's gonna get there's gonna be a number attached to it, maybe a lower number.
Right.
But everything is gonna have a number attached to it.
And, but then out of your priority list, you'll be able to say these 5 were prioritized. These 12 were not. But I'd like to see what did not make the cut as well, not
Yeah.
just the what made the cut.
Sure, yeah, I mean, yeah, we'd have the list of, here's everything and their priority rank, but we made of the things with the 5 highest scores, really, we can only do
2 of them.
number 1 and 3 because you can do them in a summer.
Right.
The other ones, they take like a year or 2 to do, so we can't pull the trigger on those right now. We need to do a little bit more legwork. They could be more significant projects. And so, yeah, we're happy to be transparent in terms of that list. So you will always see prioritized list. Right? And then you'll see when we are picking from that list and why we're picking them at that point. And at that point, the reason we're picking them is largely going to be timing and cost, depending on the project.
I think it's important for the stakeholders in our buildings too, teachers, et cetera, to see that we have a process, a formal process to decide where we spend our limited funds and how we go about doing it. It's just more fair.
I think if we have a clear, transparent process,
Yep.
I think people will understand that you can't do everything. And
Might
so-
not like it, but they at least will understand that there was a reasoning behind a decision if something doesn't get done in the manner they want it
Mhm.
to be done, the timing. Anyone else? Okay, moving on to the fiscal year 2024 budget preparation resolution. This is something we do every year about this time.
Yeah, believe it or not, preparations for fiscal year 24 budget are here. So this is a resolution that kind of kicks that process off.
Okay. This is a fairly routine way for the public to see that we begin the budget process now. Right. Any comments or questions on that? Okay, disposal of equipment.
Yeah, we have a couple vehicles, again, per our board policy, for disposal, a van and a tractor. And then the one right behind that is also IT equipment. They do a disposal a few times a year. And so they have a whole list of tech stuff that they dispose of and recycle in a responsible manner.
And those vehicles are being sold. Are they being replaced?
They already have them.
Got it. And it makes sense that we would need to replace them before we sell what we're replacing. Thank you.
Did our auto classes need them at all or any use there? Like,
Of these 2 items.
no? Okay, just curious.
Did you get donation?
Yeah.
The experimental
did that a
teacher
while back.
cars.
I had one question on a few of these IT items. Some of them still seem quite young with purchase dates of 2017. I think I saw a couple of 2020. The question is, I know some of these pieces are obsolete or they're broken, but is that the case with these like particularly new pieces?
That's usually the case, I understand. Bo? Some of the newer tech stuff on the list.
I would have to look at the specifics, but my guess is we might be talking about a monitor or 2 that might have been broken.
Okay.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I'd have to look at that.
But that's a good point that it doesn't really say why it's
Yeah.
being disposed, whether it's just out of date or broken. So that's a helpful clarification. That's probably not data that I can add between now and our board meeting in 10 minutes, but
That's okay.
maybe
I
for next
guess,
one.
no, I guess I was just looking to hear you say it's fine to presume that those items are no longer functioning and therefore,
yeah, I mean, our policy is about when we want to dispose of something. It really leaves it subjective as to why we want to dispose of it,
Mhm.
to be honest.
Okay.
So it could be more helpful to be more clear about why we're disposing that.
Yeah, it does look like on the far right column, it does say whether it's scrap or sell or donate.
right.
And all these look like scrap, so the implication there is it's
They're
not,
not,
has no value.
Yeah.
So it's broken or
okay.
obsolete.
Was this a typical list? I mean, I just thought this was a really long list. Is
Oh,
this pretty
Uh,
long?
they
I feel
get
like it's
longer.
a short list. If you review other ones, they're very, very, very long. They build up pallets at a time.
Any other questions? Okay. Item F, supplemental check run authorization.
So
Holiday.
this is just the reality that we have an early December board meeting. But thankfully we don't have one later this month. And we also have a late January board meeting. And so that's a long time between now and the other meetings to cut checks, because we typically cut checks to vendors at our board meetings. So what we would request is to run another check run between December and our January board meeting that allows us to pay for things that we feel that we need to urgently pay for, rather than wait all the way for the next one. And so we've done this every year, and then we just report on it in January. Sometimes there's hardly anything that we do. So we try to be careful about that. But this would be another annual reminder, and really request that you're all okay with that.
Yep, we want our vendors paid in a timely fashion, and due to the timing of the board's meetings, we are fine with that. Future agenda items, there's a list for the next couple of months. And any other comments or questions? Okay, wow, this
Wow.
adjourns facilities and finance at exactly 7 PM.
Casey wins.
You have 20 seconds until we start the board meeting. No,
That's right. And I see we have some guests. I'll invite anyone here for public comment to please sign in on the list. That way we can call you up to the podium in order. And we do ask for contact information if you would like to share it. If there are any things for follow-up where we need to answer a question or get back to you, that's the only thing that we would use it for. So please feel free to indicate that if you wish. If not, that's fine too. No. Under discretion. So we will begin when I get the green light that we are ready to roll. Except, I don't know.
Are you stuck?
yes, it's as soon as solicit finance.
Not,
Okay.
no. I just need to find it.
Oh, yeah. I was just calling. I just.
Thinking you were making. Yeah, exactly.
I know.
The regular Board of Education meeting for December 12th.
You ready to go?
We have already said the pledge because we did our committee meetings prior to this meeting. So I'm going to ask when you're ready for roll call, please.
Jim Batson.
Here.
Sarah Benjamin. Don Carmichael.
Here.
Kara Drumkey. Here. Lisa Hessel.
Here.
Sonal Kulkarni.
Here.
Casey Rooney.
Here,
Okay, we note everybody present. I'm going to do a quick review of the agenda. We are going to, because we have good news and student recognition, we are going to move item D up to the first item so that we can roll with recognition and let the parents and students who are here just for that purpose. They're welcome to stay, but I know many of them have homework to do and would like to get on with the rest of their evening. So we're going to start with good news. Then I will have an invitation for public comment. And we will hear our wonderful student school board representative reports. And then we do have an education presentation from the health and well-being and from two different groups, the health and well-being group and the explore multiple paths group for a strategic plan. We have a presentation. Then we will move to our consent vote agenda. These are items that we discuss in committee and that are part of our regular process of approving budget items. These are things that we won't discuss again individually, but we will vote on them in one group. Then for action, we have 4 items that we will discuss and vote on tonight. First will be the 2023-24 curriculum proposals that we discussed tonight in committee. We will discuss and vote on the community education program. We will vote on the Power School Unified Insights platform, which is an add-on to the system that we currently use. And finally, we will have a resolution to prepare our fiscal year 24 budget. For discussion, we have a first reading of some board policies. And then for information, we will discuss the participation of various board members in training and association events. Will we have an IASB report tonight, Jim? Brief update from IASB. Anything from CEDAW? We will also have an update from CEDAW. And then we will discuss future agenda items and adjourn. So let's start with our good news and student recognition.
Okay, good evening, everyone. John Gilliam, principal of Vernon Hills High School. Glad to be up here tonight. We have just continued success with our Special Olympics program. We've had, if you've been following Twitter or anything social media, you've seen unified soccer, floor hockey, among other just wonderful accomplishments. So I'm going to invite their coach, Andy Compton, up here to talk a little bit about the accomplishments and then introduce some of the kids.
That's right. We're happy to see you yet again, Coach Compton. You get to visit us a lot. And we like it.
Well, thanks for having us. It's been a very, very active and successful fall for us. Coming off the USA games in which we did so well in unified soccer, we actually carried it over into the fall and we won. We took state in unified soccer as well as finishing second. So we were 1-2 spots in state in unified soccer, which is a major accomplishment for our program. And then we followed that right up a couple weeks later with a state floor hockey title. So we have been very, very active. We're so active that we can't even get together here. So there's about 30 of us that should be here, but we've got intramurals going. We actually have a unified basketball game going down in the gym right now against Wakanda and many other things going on. So these guys are very busy and very active and it's great. But I can recognize some of the student athletes that are here today that have done an awesome job. You guys know. First of all, but let's start with the unified soccer group. We have some of the partners here. We're going to recognize them first. We have Morgan Vidal. Okay, come on up here. All right. We also have Haley Spytek. And we have had the luxury of having many sisters, brothers playing on this team. So Rachel and Sophie, please come up here. Rachel and Sophie Ackerman. All right, just a long line of brothers and sisters we've had play for our team. And then we have our athletes. We have Chris Morrison. Come on up here. And we have Mackenzie Runke. And then John Keating. I'm blanking on names. It's terrible. All right. While they're figuring this out, our state soccer championships were unbelievable. If you guys were watching World Cup, this might have been more exciting than the World Cup as of late. Our semifinal game between our VHHS Storm team and Equa Valley went to overtime, and it was tied through that. We went into a shootout, and this guy right here blocked the shootout goal to win our semifinal and send us to the championship game. So that was one of the highlights then. And LHS, of course, and then Vernon Hills playing for the championship was another highlight there. This guy right here, come up here, might be the most physical floor hockey player we've ever had in our program. And we needed it this time because those might have been our semifinal game and our final floor hockey games were probably more physical than NHL's been. These guys were so physical that day. Both games were just decided by 2 goals and 1 goal. Phenomenal playing all the way around. And I just think these are tremendous student athletes on all sides. So I wish they all could be here, but we appreciate you guys inviting us. Thanks.
Congratulations. They're spectating. I'm like, look, a picture.
Going up and get a picture. Nice.
We have one other group of athletes we'd like to recognize tonight from Libertyville High School. We had a great showing at the IHSA Girls Swimming and Diving State Meet. And I think only one of our representatives is here tonight, but we are going to honor, we took 10th place in the 200 medley relay, which means that we were all state in the 200 medley relay. And there were 4 members of that team. Logan Howard, who is not here, Georgia Kaler, who is not here, Sophia Tihunelis, who is not here, and the person who is here, where'd you swim in the order, Sarah? Were you the anchor? Were you first?
I swam butterfly. I realized I was there.
Wow.
The butterfly in the relay, Sarah Wu, come on over. Do we need a picture of Sarah by?
We're not,
Falling down on the job.
It goes like this.
We're very proud of our swimmers, and Ann Locke also took all state in the 200 free relay.
fantastic. Congratulations to all of our athletes. And we also recognize the parents that support them. And we thank them for everything they do to help their athletes compete.
How about if we have the students do their reports? Because sometimes what I have for good news, they already have in their report.
So I think we're going to do public comment first, and then we'll do the reports.
Got it.
So at this time, I'd like to invite anybody who would like to address the board for public comment.
Did we bring the list up? I can grab it.
Ready?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, good evening, District 128 residents and board members. I'm Johanna Skoog, a resident of District 128 for over 25 years, and I volunteer on the last successful District 128 referendum. This evening, I'd like to discuss the proposal to discontinue community education. To guide us through my comments, a little background. The program has been in existence for approximately 75 years. Offering community education offers value to the residents of the district and surrounding districts and demonstrates the district's commitment to learning. The program has not broken even since at least 2015. The program financial spreadsheet shows fixed and variable costs. The program students cover the variable cost of the program. In other words, the fees the students pay cover the cost of the class and the instructor only. Fixed costs are not allocated to the student population. The fixed costs are attributed to the program administrator and monitors in the building that are there during the time of adult education is hosted. In my review, I'm unable to discern any effort to reduce the fixed costs to the program. Students pay a portion of fixed costs. So what you could do is have the students pay a portion of the fixed cost or a registration cost that offsets the fixed cost. You could look at the monitors that are in the building and attribute the cost to the adult education program, even though there are other programs in the building at the same time. Part of the monitor fees could be offset by not allowing egress in or out of the building except at one point. Simultaneously, this would improve the safety coefficient of all individuals in the building and in the building the next day. I was unimpressed with the security as I entered today. Ensure that other programs are running concurrently in the building, pay for their fair share of the monitor fee. Engage in an outside consultant or registration service or onboarding service to register the learners. Your cost is really inflated. You could cease publishing the adult education booklet and mailing it to residents and learners outside the district and instead use a flyer with instructions to enroll online. You could increase enrollment by actively advertising in the program, casting a wider net, perhaps by partnering with other districts. This is useful if there is a registration fee that would help offset the fixed costs. Because right now, it doesn't matter whether you have one person in the program or 5,000, you're not going to cover your fixed costs because you're not allocating the fixed costs. This is like a basic accounting principle. If the district is unable to get creative and figure out how to improve the program financials, I would suggest that you could look no further than the fine universities in close proximity where you could engage college students to do an evaluation of the program and make suggestions. That's typically looked at as a capstone class for groups of students, and
So-
businesses frequently take advantage of this.
So you're at the 3-minute limit, so we'll let you wrap your comments up.
Okay. In closing, I would like to encourage the district not to do away with adult education. I think it's valuable to the district. And I think if you're faced with a referendum, you don't have the community behind you and you're failing to serve learners in the community. That's it.
Thank you. I will note that there is no referendum being discussed and and we appreciate your comments. Thank you for coming tonight. Okay, anybody else wishing to address the board? Okay, do we have email public comments?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
The first letter is from Andrew Thompson. Board of Education, I am writing because I am shocked that the district would drop a program that has been part of the community for 70+ years. I just don't understand why the board would decide that community ed is not worth having anymore. This is something the community has participated in for 70+ years, and just to get rid of it without talking to those that are involved in the program is just wrong. I'm not sure of the exact reason for removing it, but my guess is that the new district administration is looking for money for some program they want to start. If that is the case, perhaps the administration should share what that program is instead of trying to sneak it in. This entire thing feels wrong, and I wish there would have been more time to research what the community feels about it. As a member of this community for 12 years, I am extremely disappointed with the way the administration and board have thrown away a mainstay in the community. You do realize that the community is where the district gets most of its money from? I hope this board doesn't feel the need to look into a referendum anytime in the near future, because with decisions like this, I highly doubt they will get the community's support for it.
And I will thank that author. Could you remind me who that is again?
Andrew Thompson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Thompson. I will remind the community that there is no referendum being discussed.
And the next message is from Shirlene Thompson. I would like to express my concern that the board and administration is thinking of cutting the community education offerings. This has been a tradition for 70 years, and it is a great addition to our community and would be very much missed. And the final message is from Tom Jetson. As a participant in the community education, taxpayer, voter, and resident, I am disappointed to learn that the community education is being considered to be discontinuation. Yes, the COVID pandemic changed our lives. I believe the worst effect of COVID was the isolation it caused in our communities. My gym, place of worship, places of recreation all closed temporarily. They have all reopened, but I do not believe that they are back to pre-COVID levels. I think it is a nice idea that libraries and park districts will pick up where this leaves off. In a particular sense, they are being asked to expand or create a program without additional funding. Yes, enrollment was down 50% due to COVID. Enrollment in 2022 was up 50% over 2021 to 80% of pre-COVID levels. Does this information imply that all school participation levels did not drop during COVID and are currently back to or exceeding pre-COVID levels or participation? Cost of the program has risen by 5% per year per participant over the past 7 years. How is the success of a program measured? Participation, cost? How do we measure the value of a community coming together as people? Can we increase fees for community education costs by participant has only gone up by about $50 over 7 years. I ask that you do not cut community education. I ask if you must, that you increase fees for community education. Does going online with the catalog save the printing and mailing costs? If you must cut community education, I will take that into consideration in the future years when voting.
That's all I have. Okay, thank you very much, and to everybody who contributed their comments. Moving on, we will hear our student school board reports. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hari Jan, and I am so delighted to be sharing this experience being here with you guys this evening. Concluding the month of November was an abundance of fine arts, sports, and club activities. For the juniors, they were hit with a harsh reality sooner than they had expected: college planning. On November 28th, Mrs. Bolito held a District 128 Class of 2024 college planning webinar, where juniors were given the opportunity to think ahead for the college admissions process and what that would look like for different individuals. For an only child like junior Maddie Wayne, this webinar was incredibly informative and guided her in the right direction. She reported that this webinar taught her that she will get a good education regardless of wherever she goes, and to not stress too much over the prestige of a college. On December 4th, the chamber choir at Vernon Hills High School had their annual madrigal dessert. As a singer in the choir, the experience was incredibly gratifying because of all the hard work that had gone into it since the very beginning of first semester. Concluding the last song was bittersweet and surreal, and I realized that my very last madrigal experience had come to a close. December 9th was a Vernon Hills VH Give Friday, where the lesson was presence over presence, highlighting that being there for someone is more valuable than giving a temporary tangible gift. This lesson was especially perfect since the holidays are coming up. Leader Eaton Yao added that this lesson was valuable because it taught students to live in the moment and appreciate the people around them rather than just being worried about what the future holds. Yao saw a number of students participating in games such as bingo that required students to turn in their phones to play, prompting conversations with new people and creating a connected environment. For the students that participated in the various activities during their lunch periods, they were able to disconnect from their phones and connect with their peers. As the semester comes to a close, there is only one thing that is on the students' minds: finals. Following the returning block schedule, students have shown mixed opinions, some claiming that it causes more stress since more time per period means more questions covering more units. For some, they love that they are given the opportunity to focus on less classes per day, giving them more time to study for their difficult classes. Overall, the students aren't as stressed as previous years since finals looks different for every class. Some a project, a big test, or a small quiz that concludes the semester. As December comes to an end, students are looking forward to spending their holidays with their families. Through all the stress, triumphs, and defeats, students are ending the semester strong and ready for a long, long break. Thank you.
Hello. This past month featured a number of ways for students to get involved across their communities. Delegates from Vernon Hills' chapter of the Junior State of America spent a weekend in Chicago for the first of 3 yearly overnight conventions. Delegates from across the Midwest participated in numerous debate activities on topics ranging from geopolitics to food safety. Throughout the convention, activism activities offered VHHS students with new ways to engage with advocacy in our community and gain the perspectives of delegates from different areas within the region. ACLU of Illinois Director of Communications and Public Policy, Ed Yanka, gave a keynote speech on creating real progress within communities, allowing delegates to learn from an experienced changemaker. Senior Ethan Yao, a director on JSA's Midwest cabinet, said that the event was a great opportunity to discuss with students of different backgrounds and cultures. In this last week, the Vernon Hills bands joined with the Middle School North Band for the winter concert. Concerts with feeder schools offer middle schoolers insight into what continuing their music education can look like and can serve as a transition into the high school band. Junior and wind ensemble percussionist Sophie Cottle says that playing with the middle schoolers was fun because she personally enjoys larger ensembles and it brought back some memories of what she used to do at Middle School North. The experience challenged her as she adapted to performing with a younger group, adjusting elements of her performance and providing guidance. Regardless, she says that she's glad to have had the experience. Last month, the board heard from students who advocated for the addition of Diwali as a non-attendance day at school. Sponsor of Indian Student Association at Vernon Hills High School, Ms. Joshi, said that the conversation started at a club meeting when members expressed frustration with workload during Diwali and sought guidance. Sai Gagani says that it was difficult for Hindu students to spend time with their families and participate in religious events. Anaga Shrita says that the realization of the group was that many other South Asian students who celebrate would be experiencing the same thing, and decided to bring up the issue to the board. She hoped that they could potentially come up with a solution that would allow South Asian students to have the time to celebrate with their families and feel more connected or rooted to their culture, while also not having to worry about falling behind or the added pile of homework. Sai called the opportunity to speak amazing and said both she and Anaga hope to hear more from the board in regards to the request. Ms. Joshi shared the appreciation for the invitation of 2 ISA members to the calendar committee after communication with Mr. Varn, and says that her club members are eager to hear the board's feelings on the additional non-attendance day. Both students I spoke to are hopeful that the implementation of their initiative in the next few years will be successful. Overall, Cougars are actively engaged in their community throughout the past month and are excited for a fun conclusion to the semester.
The holidays are right around the corner, which has enlightened the school hallways with chatter about the long-awaited break, the arc with the sounds of Mariah Carey's songs, and classrooms of students with talk of what's on their Christmas list. This season marks one of gift giving, especially in the Dare to Empower community. Just last week, students wrote thank you cards to teachers during their lunch periods, a small but meaningful act of kindness. Throughout the week, the Equity Leadership Team will be presenting their microaggressions workshop to freshman transition classes. Being a part of the effort myself and being able to work alongside the equity coordinators and other student leaders had made me feel empowered, even inspired, knowing that I and my peers are all sharing stories on how microaggressions impact students and how important it is to be conscious of what you're saying. The panorama results presented 2 months ago had revealed unsurprising yet concerning data showing the disparities that exist between different ethnic and identity groups. Blacks, Hispanics, females, and those on free and reduced lunch were among some of the more underrepresented groups who reported having lower levels of growth mindset, positive feelings, self-efficacy, and social awareness. The pattern that I saw wasn't surprising, though. Across the nation, a mental health epidemic is disproportionately affecting those who may have been historically under-resourced due to their race or identity. In my classrooms, anxiety, depression, and ADHD are becoming increasingly more familiar words that I see infecting people's productivity and, most importantly, their happiness. The stigma around mental health is breaking, yielding healthy and open conversations among students. Which has led me to wonder, what's the driving force that's causing VHHS students and the community beyond to face widespread mental health issues? So, in an effort to discover why, or at least a glimpse of why, I began to talk around to students and ask them how their relationship with social media was. A majority of the people I talked to said they struggled with their confidence and self-esteem when they were using social media. Though it shouldn't surprise me, it did. For senior Jackie Gallegos, social media has affected the way she sees herself. Apps like TikTok and Instagram feed her with pictures full of photoshopped and flawless people with seemingly perfect lives, modeling the newest beauty standards and lifestyle habits, which she then compares herself to. In her constant search to live like the people she sees online, she finds herself self-objectifying and even suppressing her confidence in other facets of her life. For others, social media has unfairly quantified them down to a like, which negatively affects their body image and self-esteem. Others have not been able to develop a healthy relationship with social media, which has led me to wonder if social media is part of the mental health epidemic currently flourishing in our VHHS community and in the world. Last year, I helped create a school-wide survey about the relationships students have with social media. Out of the 326 responses I collected, there were about 45% of students that said they compare themselves to others when on social media, and 32.2% of students that said social media posts make them feel insecure or inadequate. The data revealed that social media was dramatically impacting the student population, which still bothers me. In just the past couple years, I've noticed more of my friends and my peers develop mental health issues, which is most likely caused by the intersection of several forces, one of which is social media. But what if it didn't have to be that way? At VHHS, we've made huge strides to emphasize mental health with mental health awareness weeks and spirit days. Just last year, I helped lead a body image and social media workshop, bringing in over 50 girls at the school. However, I think we need something larger than just a one-time 45-minute workshop. In fact, I think it would be beneficial for our school, based on the large number of people that feel dangerously tethered to the media, to create a social media literacy class as an elective or integrate a new curriculum which focuses on how to develop a healthy relationship with social media. As of just recently, there's been over 1,200 families pursuing a lawsuit against social media as a result of the harm it's caused against children, specifically teen girls. Meta, the owner of Facebook and Instagram, has research showing 1 in 3 girls are facing body image concerns as a result of engaging with the app, which is concerning in a large number. In this class, I'm imagining students would be able to learn about media consumption, the psychology behind social media addiction, the mental health epidemic, and the algorithms which facilitate the exponential spread of false information. Being educated on how our very digitally driven world works is crucial because it's changing the way we engage with other people and how we develop essential skills like self-esteem and confidence. Gallegos, along with several other girls I've talked to last year, have all expressed their struggle to understand their life without comparing it to the perfect people online. But things can change. Perhaps it can change with simply adding something like a social media literacy class dedicated to shedding light to its algorithms and negative impacts. I would love to be a part of any effort at the school level or the board level to make this happen.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We're super excited to be here for the last meeting of 2022. And as the year comes to an end, students and staff are getting ready to wrap up the semester, and here are a few things we'd like to highlight. So first, we had the pop-up art show last Friday. So basically, LHS hosted the show in our main gym. It featured student art displays, hands-on demonstrations, and work for sale. Senior Allison Chung made over $300 selling her jewelry, and there were also opportunities for art students to come in and do gesture drawings. So just like people that came to the show could like pose up on like a table, and art students got to sketch them in like 10 minutes or less. And just throughout the day, students and staff and parents were encouraged to just come and go whenever they could to check out some of the wonderful artwork that our art students are producing. And there was also a fish printing stand where people could like put paint on a fish and then like put it on paper. So there was that. And I actually
Not a live fish.
not a live fish, unfortunately. That would have been fun. As an AP art student, I was able to take part in the show. So it's super cool to see our fine arts or like art students highlighted. And I'm very grateful for the support and funding we get for our arts program. And of course, our athletics program is also outstanding. And so it's really nice to see our art students receive the spotlight for the work that they do also. Speaking of sports, winter sports are up and running. Our student section is very spirited and popping as usual. We have the pep band and cheer at our basketball games. And the morning sports announcements get very, very long because we have so much to celebrate. And yeah, we just hear win after win, and we are super excited to see what the winter season brings our sports. And of course, the looming presence for all the students is finals, which is coming up. And to kind of combat the stress and anxiety associated with that, we have a lot of like wellness initiatives put in place for students, and they have been pretty effective. So Dr. Nelson, our prevention and wellness coordinator, really wanted to embody it's this Danish word called Huga, I think, which means cozy contentment. So kind of to get through like the cold, dark months of winter, we have like little wellness like events that are taking place. So like on Monday, students are encouraged to wear like pajamas to feel comfy. On Wednesdays, there's a resource table where there's like area organizations and businesses with wellness activities in the library. There's also Hot Cocoa Fridays, which is very, very greatly appreciated from the students, where in the cafeteria, staff members hand out hot chocolate in the morning, and there's like holiday music playing, and it's a nice, relaxing, nice environment. And with finals coming, like the last couple of weeks, there were some issues with Power School, so that had a lot of students concerned and stressed, but I think that has been resolved. Some other problems that students are having with finals are that some finals are weighted differently in some classes than others. Seniors are also upset because in previous years for like one semester classes, if you had an A, you didn't need to take a final, but this was changed this year. But yeah, in general, people are just getting ready, preparing for finals. And for our freshmen who have not experienced this before at Link Crew, they have been getting support and resources from their mentors.
As well as this, along with the pop-up art show and other fine arts news, the LHS Choir will be holding a holiday music festival on December 13th and December 14th in the Butler Lake Auditorium. And both concerts are free. And I've seen the LHS Choir perform before. They're really good. And if I didn't have a million tests this week, I would totally be going to see them. The CRC has also had a lot of things going on lately. That's the College Resource Center. For one, seniors with college in general are just extremely stressed because this Thursday marks a lot of college decisions coming out. This whole week has a lot of decisions, but especially Thursday. It's a really big day for a lot of people, including me. So it'll certainly be interesting. In other CRC news, the LHS scholarship program is starting tomorrow, and there are about 30 scholarships donated by generous community members. And they focus not only on college-bound kids, but also kids in careers in like trades or who are going straight into the workforce. And these scholarships close on the 22nd. The CRC is also developing a career speaker series, which runs 6 weeks between January and February. And it focuses on different career clusters that students could go into. And it brings in speakers from those career clusters to talk about their paths and their challenges to face. So students can start understanding more about like their desired careers and narrow down their choices. The CRC interns, who are like the ambassadors for the students of the CRC, have been working a lot on the CRC social media accounts to put out all the information about colleges, different events going on in the CRC, as well as this Miss Murphy, our main college counselor, has started to meet with juniors this year to help them start to plan out like where they want to go to college and different college pathways for them, and also come up with their lists early and just help getting some of that stuff done proactively. The Youth Connect Council has also started meeting. It's open to sophomores, juniors, and seniors, and it essentially works to engage with local governments to benefit well-being of high school students. The Youth Connect Council talks directly with like government officials at a local level to understand programs in place and also like present a student perspective on issues that matter to them. A lot of the issues that it focuses on are like mental health issues, alcohol use, drug use, and just how to like make mental health, how to more programs in place to help with student mental health, as well as preventing alcohol and drug use. They also have been utilizing Illinois youth survey data from LHS to determine like which specific areas to focus on. In recent years, I know we've seen an uptake in mental health issues among students, which is similar to what Sophia was talking about. So the Youth Connect Council has really been working to help stop these issues and come up with programs that LHS can do, as well as that local governments can implement to make just student well-being better. As well as this, the final Green Dot bystander training of 2022 was wrapped up. 18 students were trained in Green Dot this month. Green Dot is a program that D128 has taken on to help engage bystanders to help prevent bullying. And it's a really great program. Everyone learns about it. A bunch of students, I think the goal is around 10% of the school is trained in Green Dot. I was trained my junior year, and it was just a really great experience where I was able to learn a lot about how I can be an upstander and how I can help prevent bullying and harassment when I see it. And this program is actually trying to be spread to other schools, since a senior named Judith Johnson from Waukegan came into LHS to help to see Green Dot training because she had researched the program and she wants to help implement it at Vernon Hills High School. So she'll be advocating for her district. So that's just really cool to see that LHS and VHHS have been setting an example for schools or in the area on Green Dot. And yeah, thank you.
This month is Disability Pride Month, a month of celebration and recognition of students with disabilities. To honor this month, a unity luncheon was organized and students came in during all lunch periods to recognize D128 Special Olympians and Libertyville Stars. Blake Peacock, LHS Class of 2005, spoke about his experience and encouraged students to volunteer and participate in Special Olympics athletic events. Additionally, Best Buddies are organizing a school-wide initiative to wear red on Friday to spread awareness and inclusivity. These events are crucial as they link directly with our Daring mission, aware as students seek to understand the varied experiences and realities of others, and global in that we value diversity. This week is our last week as Link leaders for the class of 27 freshmen, and it's honestly so crazy. Like, I was a freshman like 4 years ago, and now it's a full circle moment for me. Throughout the semester, senior and junior leaders met with their groups and organized events to help ease freshmen into high school and create a safe space for them to connect with each other. Many students benefited from this experience and deeply valued it, as it allowed them to feel welcomed and decrease their stress levels in this new environment. And we've also been like teaching freshmen how to like prepare for finals and study for all that, which I think are really crucial skills they need throughout high school. So I'm really proud of the program, and I'm glad that it's going to keep going. Student Council is finishing up our serve season and the canned food drive, in which we raise monetary donations and collect food and non-perishable items from students to donate to a Libertyville Township food pantry. We kicked off the serve season with our neighborhood blitz and collected cans from our neighbors and our neighbors' houses. We also received $300 from our week-long homemade baked goods sale. Some students even organized events like the senior dodgeball tournament. Senior Sophie Shalifo said, it was great at getting tradition back on track and was a fun way to give back to our community. Additionally, Ms. Angelos, the senior class board advisor, said that we raised over $250, and it was a really fun and inclusive event to de-stress and benefit the community and the food pantry. We also started a new tradition, the Serve Volleyball Tournament. Co-ed teams of varsity volleyball players competed. As the black team beat the orange team, they got into a thrilling competition against the staff team. Laughs filled the room as Dr. K coached the team, and when Mr. O'Neill ran to hit the ball, or when Miss Amon served it. Through this event, community members filled the bleachers and raised over $500 and brought an incredible amount of cans. Additionally, second period classes are currently competing for the supermarket sweep, in which students cross off food and cleaning items from a bingo board. As more items are collected, the bigger the chance to earn a prize. This event has kicked off to an amazing start, as Miss Elmore's second period class each gave $10 and finished their bingo board with over 500 items in only the first week. So we're super excited to see what's coming up. It's finishing this week, so we're really excited. MSA, which is our school's Muslim Student Association, was wrapping up the semester this week. And last week, I think it was 2 weeks ago, Dr. Sanchez came and spoke to the students in the meeting to discuss Eid and designating the correct day off.
This event was really popular and it allowed students to feel included in the important board decisions regarding their religion. And I think it was really great that she came and like included us. It was awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Does anybody have any questions for the student board reps? Okay, great job, guys. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to the consent vote agenda. May I please have a motion to approve the consent? No, we have two more. Sorry. Skip, go back. We have two more things. We have the educational presentation. I'm so sorry. The board has been looking forward to hearing that, and I will turn it over to
I'm going to start and then Aman.
Dr. Herman for the presentation. Moving a little too fast. Sorry.
We've been here a while. Well, tonight, the star of the show are definitely the product of our two subcommittees and all the hard work. But my job is just to put them in a very brief context. So you remember what brought us to this point. We have been working on the strategic plan since last fall. And that's where we gathered information and data and helped us see what are we doing really, really well and what areas might we have for improvement. We then spent some time focusing in on our vision. What would it look like if all students were realizing the daring mission, and came up with some very clear, succinct steps that help bring it to life. And then finally, we worked with the stakeholder community and staff to identify what the goals would be that would sort of chart our path for the next 5 years. Those were selected in July. And then we did the tough work of rolling up our sleeves and saying, now, how are we going to do that work? What actions will we have? And I just wanted to remind everyone, because we're going to take a deep dive tonight into 2 of the goal areas. But one of the things that's so important, we talk about in April and May, the stakeholder input and the staff input. There were 12 different options that we had identified that could be possible goal areas for our work. And you can see that our stakeholder feedback mirrors almost identically the staff feedback for the top 5. They're a little bit different order in terms of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But when we combine the staff feedback and stakeholder feedback, 3 areas emerged at the top. And that is equity and inclusion, health and well-being, and exploring multiple paths. So you'll hear about 2 of the 3 of those tonight. And again, just to remind everyone that these 3 goal areas are explicitly connected to our daring mission. This is the kind of work that we will be doing to make sure students are dreamers and doers, that they are aware, that they are thinking globally. With our equity initiative, making sure it's for all. With our health and well-being, the resiliency part will definitely shine. And exploring multiple paths will, again, in terms of dreamers and doers, and inquiry in terms of finding out what they might want to do as they transition to adulthood. One of the other things that's really important, because tonight we're going to be presenting action plans. And one thing that the board committed to during our action planning phase was strategic boundaries, things that we said we would not do. And I think that's really important to remind ourselves tonight while we are hearing action plans. So the board committed to not adopt any new program or service unless it's accompanied by staff development needed to implement it effectively, accompanied by the means to assess its effectiveness, so the metrics part. And then finally, that we have funding to staff it and buy the equipment to implement it with fidelity. So you'll see that the action plans tonight are about, it all include ideas of where staff development will be needed, where certain kinds of training and or the metrics that we'll be using. And I now want to turn it over to Dr. Aman Ellis-Bowen, who is going to kick it off and tell us about health and well-being.
All right, good evening, members of the Board of Education, staff, students, parents, and our daring 128 community. As Dr. Herman stated, I will be presenting a summary of the Health and Wellbeing Action Plan. Before I get started, I would like to begin this presentation by thanking my amazing team members of our Health and Wellbeing Action planning team for their time, input, work, and dedication to develop this plan. So as a team, as we began to meet, before we began discussing the components of the action plan, it was important for us to define what the goal is intended to accomplish in 5 years. It was important for the team, as well as feedback from the staff, that the goal accomplished or included accessibility for all students, increase awareness of health and well-being, the increased connection between mental health and academic success, to begin to destigmatize mental health within our community, create a health and well-being infrastructure, and then provide social emotional learning and health and well-being systems of supports, which leads to healthier and happier students and staff by the end of this 5-year plan. Before any action planning took place, data and information was gathered from our staff during the September Institute Day. The action planning team met for 6 sessions from September to November, where we reviewed data compiled from staff feedback, data platforms, and from research centered on health and well-being in schools. The team themed the data that we compiled, created and presented presentations based on these themes, and then finally began the action planning process. From the action planning process, 4 strands were a result of the development of this plan. Our first strand, programming, resources, and supports. Our second strand, health and well-being for staff. Our third strand, operations, resources, and infrastructure. And then our last strand, social emotional learning and health and well-being curriculum. These strands were aligned to our D128 mission and vision and evidence-based social emotional health and well-being frameworks from various state, federal, and private organizations. Some of the areas focused shown on this diagram are immersed throughout our entire plan, with areas such as self-awareness, communication, employee wellness, and leveraging student advocacy. So let's dive into the actual action plan. For our first strand, health and well-being programming, resources, and supports, this will focus on augmenting services and programming currently available within our district, but will also include an audit of this area to determine our areas of needs and growth. This strand includes youth mental health first aid training for all of our staff, introducing teen mental health first aid training for our students, targeted and continuous universal and tiered programming for all students, and leveraging student voice and leadership for health and well-being. As we heard Sophia, our student board member, share, and we want to make sure that we create more opportunities for students to share. Our second strand, health and well-being. It was important for our team to make sure that we focus on health and well-being for our staff. We believe that in order for our students to be healthy, our staff has to be healthy. So our focus for this particular strand will include fostering community building opportunities and social connections, identifying partnerships that can provide health and well-being for staff, and identify opportunities for staff to engage in health and well-being opportunities during the school day. For our third strand, our focus was on health and well-being operations, resources, and infrastructure. To quote, what we will be focusing on is stated right on the screen. To promote a health and well-being ecosystem that fosters an innovative, integrated system of resources and supports. For this particular action strand, it will involve identifying spaces and areas within each of the buildings that will foster and support health and well-being for students and staff, and restorative spaces. In addition, teams will identify data and other technological tools for improving data collection, analysis, and progress monitoring. Okay. For our last strand, it will focus on social emotional learning and health and well-being curriculum. Actions for this strand include working with committees to integrate health and well-being across the content areas and identified curriculum, aligning CASEL and ISB social emotional strands to curriculum and instructional practices, providing intentional professional development for all staff, and reviewing current discipline policies and practices to ensure that they are instructive, restorative, developmentally appropriate, and equitable.
Thank
you. Applied. In closing, the health and well-being plan will annually be evaluated through a progress monitoring of each objective, and an annual progress report will be provided to the Board of Education. Thank you. And now we'd like to introduce the members of the Explore Multiple Paths team to present their action plan.
Hello, everyone. So I'm lucky in that we have some colleagues that are going to join us today. They were on our committee and are going to be helping us by presenting a strand. We have Bernal Glover, who's joining us from LHS, and he will be presenting the first strand. And then we have Lynn Benson joining us from PHHS, and she will be presenting the second strand, and Charlotte will be the third strand. We had a very similar process to the one that Iman described for health and well-being. We started with gathering data on the September 6th Institute Day. I thought it was a fun way to gather data. There was white paper cloths on all of the tables, and folks got to write directly on the paper. And then Charlotte had the pleasure of tabulating all of that and getting it on a Google Sheet. So our first planning session that we had with our committee, they dug into all of that data, and they we had so 8 themes emerged from that data. And so the next time we met, they came together and created 8 sub-teams that then analyzed ways that we could address each of those themes and prepare a presentation that was presented to all of us with numerous ideas on what were some of the things we could do. At the time that was done, we had 16 ideas, which were all great, but unfortunately we can't do all of them. So we condensed those, and then we were back to 8 ideas, and then we engaged in another process of condensing those, and that's how we ended up with the 3 strands that we're going to be presenting on today. There was overlap in some of the themes and objectives that emerged with some of the work that health and well-being is going to be looking at, as well as some of the work that equity and inclusion is going to be working on. So we're very well aware that we will have to work together, the 3 of us, the 3 groups, on how do we address the the pieces that overlap, so that we're thinking very systemically about how we address those. We had a lot of people that helped us throughout this process. You'll see them listed on here alphabetically, and we have one in the audience today. We're very happy that she's here. We know she's here for two purposes, but we're going to say it's just for us. And then, of course, some of the folks that are presenting with us this evening. So from the 8 themes, we had 3 strands that emerged. The first one is developing post-secondary options for our students, and that is one that Bernal will be presenting on. The second one is the career endorsement pathways, which we presented on by Lynn, and then academic planning, which will be presented by Charlotte. We also got feedback from all of our administrators last week at our all admin meeting. And as we were presenting our overview of the action plan, Laura Brandt had the great idea of suggesting that we create a visual that would make it easier to digest. And she suggested that we use like a house structure. So Charlotte and I worked on this, and I think it was a great recommendation. I'm very glad we did this. At the top, you see our overall goal for this area. And then you see the 3 strands that emerged from our work with the committee this fall. And there was one thing that kept emerging in each of the strands, and it was the staffing for the program. And so that is something that is that flows through each of the strands. And so we wanted to make sure that we had a visual to represent that, so that everyone is well aware that that was something that emerged from all of the groups. We did place it in one of the strands, but it is something that we heard over and over from all of them. And I'm going to hand it over to Bernal.
Good evening, everybody. So our first strand of the for multiple pathways. You need that individual that's going to be that champion for our students in District 128. And that champion's objective is going to take part in 2 parts. Being measured by this objective. We have a confluence of things that we've done historically throughout our district. And in doing so, the future of where we want to go and provide these opportunities and extend our reach and our growth and our development in that pathway is to get this individual that's going to have a systematic approach to how we accomplish those things through private sector, public sector partnerships, through internal, external opportunities for our students, so on and so forth. I will pass this over to the part.
It is my pleasure to talk to you about strand number 2, which is the career pathway endorsement. As we kind of explore this a little bit, what I'd like to say to begin with is that the career pathway endorsement program has actually been around for a couple of years. It has been in kind of the career and technical education world. And so I've been, along with my counterpart at LHS, Dr. Kellum, at several meetings for quite a long time learning about this program. It has been gaining interest as well as credibility all across the state. So as we were doing the work that Dr. Sanchez was talking about in our group, and talking about all these different ideas and narrowing it down, and people were sharing all these great thoughts and these great ideas, we were hearing them and thinking to ourselves, we know there's a program out there that does a lot of these things, that kind of incorporates these ideas and encompasses what it is that we've identified as important to us. And that is this career pathway program. The state has embedded this through ISBE and requirements that are coming and being placed upon school districts to start offering these pathway endorsements, starting with the class of 2027 and increasing the number of pathway endorsements that we as systems are required to offer to our students incrementally through the years up through the class of 2031, I believe, we are required to offer 3 of these endorsements to those to that class, and then subsequent classes after that. So this is a program that not only is well developed and well regarded, it is a part of what we are required to do by our state as we move forward. In addition to that, it kind of organically aligns with the ideas and the things that we talked about in our group as we were working. And so for all of those reasons, it makes a lot of sense that this is a natural fit for our strategic plan for moving forward with looking at exploring multiple paths. So what does this mean for us as we really dig into this and start exploring it? One of the most important things that we'll need to do as an objective up here is to make sure we have a very deep and thorough understanding of what the guidelines are around this pathway endorsement, what it will take to successfully implement it here to our high level of satisfaction and quality that we really value here in District 128, and making sure as a part of that, that all parts of our system, all people who are involved with this really have that deep understanding, that we all understand what the program is, what it entails, what it requires, what it will mean for our students, and most importantly, how it will benefit them. So who are those people that are a part of the system? Certainly it's our counselors, it's all of our staff, it's our families, our parents and guardians, it's the community. And a big part of that community is actually our business community, because as a part of this career pathway endorsement program, students are actually required, in order to get the endorsement, to go out and to do extensive outside of this building workplace kinds of experiences. So it's very exciting, and it does align so well with what it is that we've talked about and the priorities we have identified. So as a part of that, our next step really would be to figure out and develop our pathways. What does this look like in District 128? Which pathways make the most sense for us? There is no one right way. If that's one thing that I've learned through the meetings that I've attended over these last few years, we will determine what the right way is for us and what it looks like and what works best for us in our district. So what have we done at this point? We have partnered with and are already coordinating with Dr. Jason Klein, who is an Illinois State Board of Education representative who is shepherding this program. So we are working with him directly already. As a part of exploring this and in listening to Dr. Klein, we understand that really emphasizing quality in what we are doing, in which pathway endorsements we choose to offer, what those endorsement programs look like, quality is valued over quantity. And so as we start to really dive into this and dig deeply, having that as a forefront goal and understanding of what should be guiding us is really very important. Understanding too that we have connections in our community that are phenomenal already, that exist and are going to benefit our students tremendously. So we already have a partnership with the Lake County Tech Campus, leveraging that partnership to increase the number of options our students have and making sure that the quality is assured is going to be very important. And we also have a brand new, one of a kind for the state, Lake County, I want to get the title right, the Lake County Advanced Technology Center up in Gurnee. I had the opportunity to tour there last week, and some of you, I think, were able to do that the week before. What a tremendous resource that is right here in Lake County and available to our students and for us to be able to leverage that connection. So those two resources are going to be really, really valuable for us as we explore this and develop it and decide which kinds of endorsements we want to go for our students first. In addition to that, it's very important for us to understand that it is difficult for many of our students to be able to leverage those connections and those programs through Tech Campus because of the schedule that we have and because of the limitations that students have in the time in their day. So it is also going to be very important that we explore which of these career pathway endorsements we can develop in-house and what we can offer to students that are in our buildings and not able to necessarily go to Tech Campus and access these other outside programs. So we are working on that, and we've actually identified a couple that I think we as a group think can really come to fruition fairly quickly. And if I got the okay to kind of mention, then we really do think that IT is one that we can do pretty quickly. The components that are involved with this would be courses that align and offer growth in skills, post-secondary, early college, college credit options need to exist in this pathway. And we have some AP options there, along with 60 hours of experience with a workplace setting and professionals who are in the business, so to speak. So we have some of those programs already in place and aligned here and at LHS with IT. Business accounting and financing is another area where we have the components and people available to our students who can help with that the thing that feels like the biggest hurdle, which is those 60 hours outside of the school building and working with professionals. So we're very excited. We're excited that we have these partnerships that we can leverage. We're excited that we have a program that's well developed, endorsed, and really embraced by the state, to the point where they are requiring that we offer pathways to students beginning with next year's freshmen, and then incrementally increasing those requirements as the years go on. Now, what does that look like in terms of what we need to do for early college credit options and increasing those? It's going to be very important that we pay close attention to that, because it's an integral part of the program. It's an integral part of being able to offer the pathway endorsements. So early college credit would include AP classes, many classes that we offer here already. It includes dual credit options, some classes that we already offer here, but really looking at increasing those numbers and fortifying that program, as well as articulated credit. And there's a distinction between those two different kinds of credit. And I don't want to take your time and get into that this evening, but articulated credit is something that we offer in greater quantities here. Like the classes that we offer are more plentiful for articulated credit. And it is a way to get students early college credit that will count toward this endorsement. So these are all very important things and very exciting work that we've been able to engage in, and we're looking forward to developing this to the benefit of our students. So thank you. I think Charlotte's up next.
Good evening. So I will be presenting on the Explore Multiple Paths third strand of academic planning. So there is a lot that goes into this strand, and difficult to pare it down into just 2 or 3 objectives. So just know that there is more here than is being presented within our tasks and the more specific steps we're going to take to achieve this. This is also a place where we see a large crossover with our health and well-being team to make sure that what we are offering students in terms of their schedule and what their day looks like is good for them and good for their mental health. So the first objective under this strand is to select an online tool for career and college exploration and academic and career planning. We are already in the process of doing that. We've started to vet numerous tools and have some great information from area districts and schools with what they are using to accomplish this. So this would be a way for our students and for our schools to keep track of where students are in their academic journeys. We also need to make sure that we allot time for all students to connect their academic plans to their career pathways and to their course selection. So this may be time to meet with counselors, with career advisors, those types of things. And to get this done, we will be needing to also work with our committee that is working on flexible use of time and how we are going to plan our students' days or weeks around this initiative. But knowing that they are needing time to make sure that they're making those correct connections and planning correctly for their futures. And finally, the third objective in this strand is to create and implement a universal curriculum for academic planning and college and career readiness. So this is something that we want to endeavor to create, something that will work specifically for our students and our cultures. And that brings us to the end of the Explore Multiple Paths section. The next steps for our teams are to start thinking about the 5-year plan. Where are we going from here? How are we implementing the things that we are setting out to do? We'll be communicating our action plans further out to the District 128 community, and we will begin tackling some of our tasks right away in the spring of 2023. So thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, do we have time for some questions? Because I would love to open it up if the board members have any questions. We have a spot for our guests. Great if we could just want to like sit down in the front row in case we have any questions for Ms. Benson or Mr. Glover. Thank you. Okay, I'll open it up to the board for any questions.
Scrolling.
So thank you for putting this together. I was very excited about especially the career planning and aspects of it. Just some ideas more than questions. Have you considered, I mean, I'm big on piloting things before we kind of jump in and spend a whole lot of money. Have you considered doing any kind of pilots, let's say for next summer, to see how would you gauge student interest? I mean, how many kids want to do this? What kind of areas they might be interested in? You know, we might find volunteer parents who can help do some connections. So just kind of throwing ideas out here if you've thought through those things.
I think that we already use I think the school uses Navia. What's the name of the other one? What was the other one, Brian? Score. And so those are softwares that help us identify like the interest of the kids. And so we've been using that type of software. And so we're looking to find one that both schools will use. And I think that would be an opportunity to pilot. Like if we look at 3 or 4 or 5 and are really compelled by 2, we could probably run a pilot at one school and another one at a different school to see which one we want to stick with. I think that would be an opportunity for a pilot.
Naviance doesn't do academic planning.
Not like we would like it to do. We'd like to be able to do more longitudinally, and I think there's talk. A lot of districts have switched over to school links, and we're hearing a lot of really good things about that, and what it can do with the academic planning that goes beyond the interest survey.
And that would replace Score and Naviance.
Yes.
When do the contracts with Score and Naviance end?
I think those are annual.
Dan might know.
There's a free one.
The U-Sign, which is what I think Score is embedded in, we actually access through the Lake County Career and Technical Education grant system. So it is paid for through the grant system. We access it for free through our association.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah, no, my question, I mean, thank you for that. I think that's one thing. I wasn't necessarily just asking about the software part of it. I was also trying to see if you can pilot sort of the process of how you might get some of this going. As an example, if you had a group of volunteer parents, I'm just throwing this out there, not sure that we would, but let's say you had volunteers who had connections in the community. And they say, and the other side of it is, do you have any students who are interested in doing that? Let's just pick summer of 2023. What might that look like? Is that something that you've thought about? Maybe you can offer a summer internship or shadowing to maybe 10 kids and see what goes into it. Or
Yeah.
5 kids.
So part of the program development, there is in one of the tasks embedded in there is the opportunity to develop partnerships with businesses, externships, internships. So the students have more of that hands-on and get to experience kind of or develop a not an extensive knowledge, but get to know a little bit about those careers that they're exploring. So that is one of the things that we are hoping to do.
We have something new to our district that LHS students are participating in now. It's similar to what I'm hearing you say, is the ACE Mentor Chicago program. The A stands for Architect, Construction Engineer. And how that understood was to just present to our kids in particular classes in the field, never related fields of study, just to get into off the conversation. And based off that conversation, we invite them to get a little more in depth with their families. Because there's a specific requirement to participate. And this is just sort of my opinion, by far one of the best beyond technical understanding about. I've been associated with this program since 2013. My own child graduated last year. He was in the program for 3 years. And now he's playing basketball at Iowa. And the relationship they form working with the mentees moving forward, they're strong mind, life change. We have a total of 6 LHS students. I'll probably forget the name of the company since I started out as well, but Gensler, Anytime, Sergeant Money, we're talking about very global activity that in the perspective of architecture. So those are type of partnerships that we would seek to big interest, not only kids that have that aspiration of being an architect or in that field, but you may be a high-level master and you can be introduced to how the weight load of steel is distributed throughout the field. And there are very particular aspects to those 3 fields that these students want to do. And all the students that are currently involved in this school, they're happy.
And I would say so at Vernon Hills, we have a career writing. So we have the surrounding community business folks who come in and do that for the year. And just prior to the pandemic, we had a student-led effort here to do both job shadowing and bring in guest speakers on regular basis. So we're in the process of trying to resurrect that here and trying to leverage our partnership with our community. So all those things are out there and they're percolating, but they will be as a part of the career pathway program. If we do the program as it's designed, those kinds of experiences will be embedded in that course.
What does it look like for the student? I'm a freshman, I'm entering the school. How does the student interact with a concerted effort to provide them a multiple pathway experience? Is this something that they do in their English class? Is it set aside half day? Like, how does the student engage?
Yeah, so that is part of our third strand in academic planning. One of the objectives is working with our flexible use of time committee to identify that time, right? Is it a period or, are we going to do a seminar series and say every 3 weeks, we're going to run a special schedule so that all of the kids could have exposure to X, Y, and Z via an assembly or a speaker series. So that is something that we're very excited. Tom is leading leading that committee. So we're very excited to get that work started so that we can finalize it. As a planning committee, we developed two plans, Plan A and Plan B, and I think one of them will come to fruition. But we did think about that, so we did develop two plans.
I did hear the 60 hours. So does it take us students 60 hours to go through?
No, the 60 hours are the the work related hours for the experience, like the internship experience. So they would
Okay.
have
Because that's a lot of hours.
yes.
And that would be part of an endorsement.
Right. That's over multiple years.
Mhm.
Those hours don't have to happen all together. They can be
Good.
but maybe then another 20 hours interrelated.
Got it.
And do summer experiences also count towards
Yes.
the 60 hours?
One other thing, when you're talking about where in the school day might it fit? The other thing is a lot of these conversations start in middle school in terms of helping the students not just pick which courses they want freshman year, but the idea of, some of the academic planning tools or four-year planning that we develop would be introduced to students in 7th and 8th grade. And in conversations with our sender districts, they're very interested in partnering with us on that too.
I want to say, thank you. I mean, I really appreciated the explanation, and I got much more from hearing from you than just the slideshow. And I know you guys have all talked about this. I really appreciate the measurement, that you're really thinking about what makes it effective and constantly evaluating that. I get the objective is what, and the measure is how well are we doing? But what I just heard in our conversations is the how, the actions of what, just you explaining the ACE mentorship program. I think I'd like to see more of the how to get through those objectives without it being, I totally get that kind of a presentation might get overwhelming, but just the conversation that we're having now, it just makes it much more clear of how we're going to get to the objective.
I think your focus on the conversation is really important because both committees have many page long action plans. So this is the high level,
Right.
to introduce it to you and to get some feedback. We definitely will continue to share those action plans with the board members, but even those get more technical in a way. So from conversation with the team, we thought this is the best way to give the board a flavor of how we've focused and set aside some of the things, because like they said, the committees have had so many wonderful ideas that we've pared down and distilled it down to these really key actions. Actually in this Friday's superintendent update, I can send you a link to our current detailed action plans. If
It just
that-
brought
if
it
you
to
would-
life.
Yes.
I mean, I got it as a very kind of overview, but hearing the different hows brought it to life for me. But it might be because I'm late and tired.
Then when do you see hiring staff?
So that is something that we would like to do soon. And we're hoping to be able to bring you some job descriptions and in January.
Ooh, so soon. Okay.
So we should expect that to be in Dan's next
Mhm.
year's budget. then.
Yes.
But it's already in the budget, isn't it? Didn't we already put a line item in for the implementation of the
That
strategic
was
plan?
part of the presentation from last year. It is one of the other things that we said we bring back once we had a plan that said what this person would be doing. So we are following the setup that we made. And actually, Sonal, it's similar to the structure that you saw from Lake Zurich from the presentation. One of our neighboring school districts invested about 3 years ago in a similar position and is now presenting at the board, or excuse me, at the school board convention, some really wonderful things. So we would imagine that same kind of leverage person to be taking the good things that are already happening at both buildings,
Right.
and sort of magnifying them and getting a lot more community input and connections, as well as potentially grant opportunities.
And certainly look for some cadence of community volunteers who can sort of shepherd this process along and, you know, think about what that volunteer profile looks like. What do they do for you? Because you know, you could have 10% people then, you know, that are free versus trying to, you know, build up here. So I would most definitely, I mean, I've asked people that I know and they are all like, I'd like to help. So I think we should call on our community.
Sounds like there's a job opening for you.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, someone else mentioned late and tired. I need you to explain a couple things to me as if I were a toddler. And I'm sorry for even asking, but this is all new information. The whole concept of like offering pathways to students as like an educator, this is relatively new. I've been out of the game classroom wise since this all has been introduced. So I have a couple of questions that if you could answer to simply redefine and refine my understanding. So is a single career pathway one area of study, or is it just what we call the option the student has selected if they should choose? Well, it sounds like they're all going to end up with these pathway options, but if they should choose to endeavor and follow a career pathway program, does that make sense? So like, is that one area of study, or is that just kind of like the general program? And it could be, there's 12 different areas of study that a student could choose from, arbitrary number. Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, so ISB has developed 16 clusters, and each cluster can have many career pathways. So for instance, software development would be a very specific career pathway, and that we could develop and kids could graduate with an endorsement. So that would require, we would develop like a sequence of courses in addition to their, core instruction, embed those 60 hours of work-based experiences, so that potentially a senior could graduate and, get a job with, program
With that
development
endorsement.
right away.
Okay, so that was kind of leading to my next question, which what does an endorsement get a student, right? A job, a certificate, college credit, or some other post-secondary program credit? Does it assist with easing potentially the rising costs of college? Okay.
Yes.
So I'm asking this as a board member and not really, seeing that. I think that's a massive selling point in that the community may want to hear that very loud and clear. To me, that's incredible. But if you have more to comment on that.
Yeah, so it's all of the above. It could be a certificate. It could go straight into the workforce after graduation. It could be, dual credit classes so that you can graduate with an associate's and you only have to do 2 years at a 4-year university. So it is all of those.
Okay, perfect. And then to sum that up, when we say one pathway in 27, 2 in 29, 2029, and 3 in 31, what does that mean? Does that mean 3 choices available to all students, as in we're onboarding these areas of study, or these endorsements one at a time,
Correct.
very purposefully and very slowly? Okay, so by 2031, our students have 3
Options.
potential fields that they may explore and potentially earn endorsements on through our district. So this is a very slow and deliberate incorporation of this program.
Correct.
Thank you.
But do I understand it right? That is only if they're choosing an endorsement.
Correct.
That does not, it does not eliminate others taking opportunities at other career, whether mentorships or other programs. That's only specifically if they're going to go for this endorsement. We also want to make sure that everybody, just a wide variety of possibilities, right?
Correct. So that's where like the third objective comes in, where we could develop like this curriculum where we are teaching and exposing all students to the numerous fields and the numerous options. But some can elect to hone in on a very specific pathway endorsement.
And then going forward, the plan will be to adopt a new pathway every 2 years or so.
So we met with Dr. Klein last Monday, and he's kind of spearheading this at the ISB level, and they developed the P20 network that is based out of NIU, and they're kind of leading this for the state. And he really urged us to make sure we focus on quality, as he's seeing districts just churn out numbers and have all of these pathway endorsements, but ensuring that we develop quality programs where we're very intentional with the experiences and the mentorship opportunities and the internships, and ensuring that students have a great overall experience over quantity. So we took that to heart, and we want to make sure we do this very well and do justice by our students in our community. So it will be a slow rollout.
And then one last question. So typically a single student would then pursue one career pathway. This isn't something where a student could pursue multiples within their high school experience. The 60 hours is going to be challenging enough as it is, correct?
Yeah, I think it would be very difficult, because in addition to, they still have to get their, core classes in. And that's a lot of classes in addition to whatever they would like to focus on for that career pathway endorsement.
Yeah, please. Kind of to your question about 1.7 and then 2 and so on. Low and steadiness of the race and quality of the absolutely. But I'm just going to throw it out there that we may find as we dig into this and we explore our partnership with Tech Campus and the Technical Center, that we may be able to offer more than those are minimums that are set by the state. So with an eye to quality and making that our priority, we still may be able to offer more than the minimum that the state is requiring as we go along.
Thank you. Thank you for really breaking it down for me. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
What other questions do we have?
I'm good now.
Good. Well, it sounds like all of the plans really impressed the board, and we are very excited to hear the good work that's going on behalf of our students. Sounds like we have a tremendous stakeholder group. When I looked at the presentation, I thought it was a little overwhelming, frankly. But now that I hear some of the specific plans and that it's over 5 years, I'm really excited about the potential of what this will do for our students. So thank you.
And from January, we'll be hearing from the equity and inclusion team.
Great. Okay. So now is the time where I will ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as listed. No, still?
I have one last, I know our board meetings are back to back with committee, but I did have one of our new hires, unfortunately got a teaching job, teaching aide. I just found out.
Oh,
They're on the consent agenda,
so we need to pull out.
So can you move out?
so we can pull them off consent, right? And then vote on the consent.
Separate
still.
motion.
That's correct. And thank you for reminding me to ask if there's anything we need to pull out
Right.
of the consent agenda.
I
That's
just found out and I just, rather
Well,
than vote on somebody. to
Of course.
figure in and-
Of course. And I need to get into the habit of remembering to always ask if there's anything that needs to be pulled out of the consent agenda. So we will be pulling item B, employment of employees, out of the consent agenda.
Can we just pull the one?
Does it matter?
I think you can just pull the one person off.
Okay. So if everybody could navigate to that.
So Deanna Solander was, we were recommending to hire her as a physical welfare teaching aide. Unfortunately, unfortunately for us, fortunate for her, she got a full-time teaching job.
Okay.
Second semester. So
So we will present the consent vote agenda with that modification to item B. Can I have a motion, please?
Rooney, so moved.
Thank you.
Carmichael, second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, can I have a roll call, please?
As amended.
As amended. And that was Rooney, with the motion? Okay. Perfect.
Okay, so you ready for roll call?
Yes, please.
Okay. Batson.
Aye.
Benjamin.
Aye.
Carmichael.
Aye.
Drumkey.
Aye.
Hessel.
Aye.
Kulkarni.
Aye.
Rooney.
Aye.
Great. The consent vote as amended passes. We move on to actions for, move on to items for action. And I will turn it over to Jim for the items A and B that came out of PNP.
Okay. The first item is the 2023-2024 curriculum proposals. These were presented and discussed at committee earlier. If we want to do a quick overview for the public to hear.
So we are requesting that we approve the current, well, the curriculum guide is presented tonight with the addition of 4 new classes. We have data science, AP Pre-Calc, Spanish language arts at Vernon Hills to mirror LHS at LHS to mirror Vernon Hills High School, and AP African American Studies. And then we also have course name changes to Mind and Body, as well as splitting AP Micro and Macroeconomics. And then we have name changes to Pop Rock Ensemble, Music Appreciation and Production, Biotechnology and Genetics, Inclusive Theater, Art and Music. That's it.
Thank you. Can I start with a motion in a second?
Drumkey, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Drumkey, motion to approve the 2023-2024 curriculum proposals as presented.
Hessel, second.
Okay, any discussion, questions, comments?
I think the introductory paragraph in the agenda
States it.
Yeah, it really does. And it's important information that any additional changes if needed are going to be brought forward. And then a meeting would take place with the associate principals and the assistant superintendent of teaching and learning to finalize the courses and changes that will move forward to DLT. Is that correct? Great. Thank you.
And then once they get past there, they come to us.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Thank you for that. Okay, roll call, please.
Benjamin.
Aye.
Carmichael.
Aye.
Drumkey.
Aye.
Hessel.
Aye.
Kulkarni.
Aye.
Rooney.
Aye.
Batson.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. The second item on the agenda is something that's been discussed for a couple months now. We opted to move it to this meeting, so this is a repeat of an item from last month, and that is the discontinuation of the community education program. Not too sure if
Yeah, I
you
have
want to give
some-
an overview here.
Yeah, I
and
have some
of
thought-
the responses
Yep.
from our comments last month.
I have some follow-up and maybe answers to some questions. So we presented this at the November Program and Personnel Committee meeting and also at the board meeting. You know, after evaluating this program, that our recommendation was to discontinue the community education program. Yes, it's been in existence for over 70 years, so this was a tough decision. You know, but looking at what, you know, Community High School District 128 does as an entity to educate our students, that we felt there were other services in the communities that could better service some of these adult classes. And that we made a commitment to work with some of our partners Vernon Hills Park District, Village of Libertyville, to offer up what we have as the facilities, that our taxpayers have paid for, that maybe they don't have, whether that's, our consumer economics classes, the pools. And we have some history of already, partnering with the Vernon Hills Park District with their pool. So their program uses our pool. So Libertyville is a little bit different setup in that they don't have a park district, but some of their programs use some of our fields outside, use some of our indoor resources. And so we, have some, I guess, skeleton of some of those partnerships, how it can be. And I have already had initial conversations with, and following our November board meeting, had more conversations with Village of Libertyville and Vernon Hills Park District. I gave them like our top 20 classes, and they said, yes, there are definitely classes that they would be interested in offering through their program, and that we could offer facilities. They did not want to spend a lot of time until formal action was taken by our board. But then our goal is in January for our current staff and myself to meet with the village representatives and go over in detail, how we can, work with the classes, the instructors. And I, they, have the resources. I know that, we've heard from, some people in the area that, are disappointed. I know that some of the people aren't District 128 taxpayers. They're outside the area because we have served people from more than just District 128. And I still think we can continue to serve them, and they can go through the Village of Libertyville and Vernon Hills. The other piece of it is the North Suburban Wind Ensemble. And I think there's opportunities for us either to partner with one of the other government entities to continue, or we could also explore where we currently run a master's swimming program, which this is a master's music program. And it's a program for us that doesn't lose money. It makes a little bit of money. It's offered, adult swimmers in the area. And that's something that we might be able to do also. So we can explore that. I do not want that program to go. I think when you look at some niche areas, swimming and music, if you keep the parents involved, because we get involved, and that just helps us. And so that's something that I think there's ways to continue all of these programs. So I'm excited about that because, and I know the villages are, that we do have the facilities and we can do that. We would work then on, we have a intergovernmental agreement already with Vernon Hills on most of our facilities and other things. I'd have to check to make sure that covers some of the maybe some of these new programs coming in. And then I've already talked to Libertyville about, we would have to develop our intergovernmental agreement to make sure it covers these classes, but I don't see that being a problem. And again, disappointed that, we are ending the program, but I think, when you look at the financial aspect that, we're able to do some things with our students. And we've heard a couple presentations tonight that, we can better serve, I think, our students in District 128. So, okay. If there's any other questions.
I do.
Go ahead.
Am I the only one? I wasn't here at the end of November, and I know we talked about it during committees. I guess the way I understood it, that our classes individually are not, I guess my first concern is a commitment with the other entities to take this over, because I do think this is a service that we provided and it's something our community is expecting. We've budgeted for it for next year. And
For the rest of this year.
No, we've budgeted through the end of this year, the end of this fiscal year, and we are continuing with those classes. We're still hosting our classes. They're already being, published and promoted for like January through June.
But we wouldn't,
And then we would end.
based on this vote, we would not put them in the following year's budget.
so the way I understood it when we were talking about it first, the classes themselves support the cost of the class. It's the overhead.
The-
Have,
the classes themselves support really just that internal class.
That internal class.
Teacher and supplies, and that's about it. It doesn't. The
Right.
cost of the class doesn't include the printing cost, the computer software program, and our people that are.
Right, so and it's the overhead, it's the publishing, it's the monitors and keeping the school open, which is indicative of the 200, well, the deficit. And are we pretty certain that the other entities are going to be taking over most of what we're offering is still going to be available in a different way? Because what I haven't heard is any alternatives to trying to reduce some of those fixed, like she
Yeah,
said,
so-
fixed costs.
So the alternative first to maybe like to reduce those costs is that you'd have to raise those prices, and the number of classes that we're running for the people that we have, we would never, the classes then would be too high for people to join anymore. And then we would, we'd be discontinuing more classes as it is. Yeah. But we do have a commitment. Again, they don't have all the specifics on which classes they're offering. Because they, need a formal action by this board, but they are committed to continuing our classes. I know that, like, if you look at, the cooking classes, I know that, Vernon Hills has, tried to start some of them. They just don't have the facilities to be able to offer them. We have the facilities. In fact, I think a couple of our instructors do work for, they do the park district stuff and here. So they know what it's like working in our building. But they were both interested in a lot of our classes. So I think we can.
Right, but other than the publication, wouldn't the monitoring and then keeping the school open, wouldn't all that stay the same per class if they're utilizing our facility?
We would, we have.
Other than the full-time employee and that, I mean, I'm sure that's the lion's share of it. And then also the publishing, is it at the
So
large?
so the publishing would go away, our costs would go away. We would be, reduction of force of our staff members. So our 2 monitors, then plus, our director of community ed, and then the administrative assistant for community ed.
How much is the software? Annual?
Yeah.
I mean, I was also thinking about this with some distance and, looking at this, are there like some of the variable costs, like having to pay for an evening monitor as an example? Is this something that can be added into the class fee?
You can, but the evening monitor is not a significant cost to the
Okay,
program.
so then, and if you eliminate the printing of it and go completely electronic catalog, what can we do to reduce the lion's share of the cost here, which is the director of community education and the assistant?
Well, right now our director of community education is part-time to begin with. So it was reduced before. So it used to be, Diane Phillips full-time, and then she retired, and then we hired back at part-time. She was doing some other areas of work with grants and stuff for the district, but we reduced her to under 30 hours a week. And then, our administrative assistant, I mean, unless you put that person at part-time too, but then that'd be even harder trying to service people signing up for classes if that person's not there all day. I mean, and then I guess if you reduce the director of community education even more, who could you find to work, to try to run a whole program at 10, 15 hours a week? I mean, and the hard thing is, like, we're running, I guess, adult education, and that's not what we're,
In business of doing.
that's the difficult thing, is trying to run a program that we just don't.
And
Can I
we are facing increasing costs like the rest of the world. And we are limited to how much we can raise in revenue. As a taxpayer, I'm glad that we're limited to how much we can raise. our property taxes, which fund most of our efforts. But I think in the face of skyrocketing costs that we need to be very careful about allocating our resources for the benefit of students, especially when we've got park districts, we've got library boards, we've got Vernon Hills recreation programs that not only are already offering adult education, but want to take over some of these programs where we can provide our facilities. So while it's a difficult decision and there are people that are going to be disappointed that they can't sign up for adult education through D128, D128 can still support adult learning and our commitment to ongoing education, but focus responsibly our resources on our students, which is where I believe they need to be focused.
And you know, we're also lucky in our area. We do have College of Lake County, which is just north of us, that, you know, has a lot of offerings too. I think there's a lot of things in the area that, you know, adults that are looking for further education, whether it's more intense courses or shorter courses, that there are things that are available. But again, we're making the commitment to work with the Village of Libertyville and Vernon.
I have a few things.
Sure.
Whenever we are faced with a decision, the first thing I do is I look to policy. So in our policy, we do have a statement that says that the board may offer adult education as long as it is in line with our district philosophy. So I went to our district philosophy statement, and our district philosophy statement reads, I quote, "The district's educational program will seek to provide an opportunity for each child to develop to their potential. The objectives for the educational program are," and then it lists some objectives. So to me, that's very clear. And then I talked to, I don't know, dozens of people and asked their opinions. And to a person, when I told them what the cost was, they said, no, that money could go towards hiring personnel to remedy shortcomings that occurred during COVID. We could hire another teacher. So it was an issue for me because policy said we teach children, and fiscally we are directed to teach children, and these would be resources that we could use in a different way. And then today I was trying to find that reference, and so I just typed philosophy in. Turns out we have two philosophy statements. Philosophy statement 130, school district philosophy. Again, I quote, "Community High School District 128 will create 2 quality schools that will maintain high standards and provide effective educational opportunities and resources for all students, parents, and community members. Each school will be encouraged to develop an identity and culture within the district." These two policies are at odds. When I read the second policy, I have to vote not to accept the recommendation. However, then I started thinking, we do educate adults. This policy doesn't direct us how we educate adults or engage with the community. And Brian, actually, you changed my thoughts tonight, because we do offer an adult education swim program. We are looking for mechanisms to include adults in maybe a fine arts, symphonic band, whatever, and we allow them to use our facilities. So while I read that, I was like, well, policy dictates that we have to have an adult education program, but I don't think that it does. I think that policy says that we will be open to educating adults, and we have evidence that we are doing that. We're just not doing it across the board with everybody in all.
In a full community ed program.
Correct. So, yeah, I went 180 today. So I just wanted you to know that we have policies that we might want to address as potentially conflicting. I mean,
And now that we
if
have
we're not,
three sites, we also need to include our third site in that philosophy statement.
yeah, that's
Yep, 2
correct.
sites, we have 3 sites.
So I would recommend that we change our policy, or at least review or update our policy.
Fine,
One.
something.
Yeah.
Eliminate the redundancy.
Yeah, and then I think that I don't know if we're all saying what we're gonna do here, but now I feel more comfortable moving forward with the administration's recommendation, because I don't feel like we're excluding, I feel like we're not including everyone, but that's still aligned with our philosophy. That's all.
Okay. Can we go next with a motion in a second?
No, we need a motion in a second, and then we can continue our.
Yeah, we
discussion
can
if
still
want further
continue, yeah.
input, But I think we've gotten to a point where if we're going to proceed, we probably should have a motion in a second at this point.
Benjamin, I move to approve the discontinuation of the community education program in mid-June of 2023.
Rooney, second.
Okay. Any further comments, questions, concerns?
I appreciate all of Bryant's efforts and everyone's efforts, but Bryant's efforts in particular to reach out to our community partners and find alternative pathways to provide the adult education that the community clearly wants. And I appreciate, Dan, you guys thinking about alternative ways to save money that might have changed things, but tripling the cost of classes when you can go up the road to CLC and have those needs met at a better cost. There's options out there for folks, and I look forward to continuing to provide some of these services with our facilities and partnering with Vernon Hills and Libertyville to make this happen.
I think it's important that we recognize that we all support lifelong learning. This might not just be that piece of lifelong learning. Just because this piece isn't happening doesn't mean that we don't support it. We're just going to have to find other ways to support it.
I guess my position is, I certainly don't want to keep funding a loser. I understand the financial responsibility and not supporting a loser. I'm disappointed that we do not have a commitment and a better plan of what this is going to look like in the future. And that's what I was looking for. I appreciate that Vernon Hills and Libertyville has said they're going to work with us, but that is just, they're going to work with us. And I would have preferred to have seen something. I'm disappointed that Vernon Hills or either community doesn't really want to talk and solidify a plan so that we can be sure that most of what was being offered will still be offered in some kind of entity and in a better, more financially responsible way. That's what I'm disappointed in. So I'm still very conflicted in that I wish we had time to have that before we did that.
And that is very legitimate. And thinking about the government entities that are our partners, I do understand that they don't want to spend the time and resources on fleshing out specifics if there's a chance that this board doesn't approve the recommendation and then they've wasted their time and precious resources fleshing out a program and making a commitment and then having it be for nothing. So I do appreciate your concern and you're wanting to have more specifics, but I also can see the other side where these entities, like many entities, are short-staffed and have to be protective of their resources before they go down a path that might be a waste of time.
We may also discover 5 years down the road that this was a tragic mistake and we really should have done a better job. Well, there's nothing that says that we can't re-implement if new methods, data, whatever comes to light that allows us to make a different decision.
You're kind of going there. I mean, for me, I've struggled with the app. What comes first? I think I asked this question before too. I would have liked to make a decision once I have information at my hands. But I think the way this is probably going is first we have to make a decision and then we will have a plan. So in my mind, it's a little reversed and that's why I've struggled with it. So my only other thing that I can think of is let's say that, what, we make a decision and the board decides today to end the program, the government entities start working towards an alternative, and we discover, yes, there are alternatives, yes, life goes on because we haven't taken away anything from the community. What if that does not happen? What course do we have at that point? At that point, can we look at, how can we reduce the cost here? I mean, that's sort of the plan B is what keeps swirling in my mind, because we're making a decision based on like open-ended stuff. At least that's kind of where I'm struggling right now.
I think if it gets to that point, you have to look at what are the priorities for the district. Meaning, we can do almost anything, but we can't do everything.
Right.
So we'd have to prioritize, like, okay, so if the best laid plans aren't working out and it's not working out, then we have to make a decision. All right, if you want to add this program back, what does that imply in somewhere else? So if you're gonna spend your money there, where are you not gonna spend the money? Because there's only so much there.
Yep.
So that, I just think that's something that you're gonna have to face. That's a decision you're gonna have to make at that time, hopefully informed.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, that if we did, or to Don's comment, we come a couple of years down the road, 5 years down the road, and we decide, no, we really feel there's something missing here. I doubt it will look exactly the same as it does now. So in any case, I think even if we decided to bring, or what we decide to bring back in, such as what Bryant was talking about, the swimming program or the North Suburban Wind Ensemble, or those kinds of things, it will look much different than what it does now. And we'll have that opportunity to build, whatever programs we decide we want to based on our priorities at that time. But I have some confidence in our partners to be able to take over a number of these programs, and keep people engaged.
Because it's mostly the administration, of it that is at risk, and not the actual delivery
Correct.
of the classes. Thank you for letting me out.
Okay. Anybody else have last comment? Okay, we have a roll call, please.
Carmichael,
Aye.
Drumkey,
Aye.
Hessel,
Aye.
Kulkarni,
Aye.
Rooney,
Aye.
Batson,
Aye.
Benjamin.
Aye.
Motion passes. And more to come on that topic. I got one more. Want me to continue on?
Is that?
That came out of PM. Yeah, they came out of PM.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so the third item here is Power School Unified Insights Platform, a new piece of software that we're looking to implement. Should we get just a brief overview here for the general public?
Again, so, the recommendation was made to the board tonight, to look at, a program, that will begin to, help us, customize, our needs in regards to data, and, also bring the ease of use to, our data collection, along with the flexibility, and the accessibility of data, so that we could begin to move towards the collection to the analyzing and data modeling for identifying and evaluating programs that we're currently doing well in the district, but then also identifying gaps within the district. In addition to that, it will allow us to integrate multiple data sources into one area, but then also allow our stakeholders to create accurate snapshots of our community by district, by building, and then by student. So with this being said, it is the recommendation of the team to take a look at the adoption of this platform for those purposes.
Okay, thank you. And this is just a point of additional clarification. This is an addition to our current student information system, Power School, that is, has been in place for many years. So this is an enhancement to that and will support the MTSS program here, the multi-tiered support services. So can we have a?
Carmichael, move to approve the contract with Power School for the Unified Insights Platform for the time period of January 1, 2023 to June 30, 2024.
Thank you, Don.
Hessel, second.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments?
I just like to make sure that we add in the caps for increase when it comes to contracts. That's.
Okay. And again, this,
As looking into making sure we don't get charged for you.
Charge for data.
Yes.
and again, this was thoroughly discussed in committee earlier, so. Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Drumkey,
Aye.
Hessel,
Aye.
Kulkarni,
Aye.
Rooney,
Aye.
Batson,
Aye.
Benjamin,
Aye.
Carmichael.
Aye.
That's it for program and personnel.
Item D for action came out of Facilities and Finance, fiscal year 2024 budget preparation resolution. This is an action we undertake every year to allow our Associate Superintendent of Finance to begin the budgeting process.
Hessel, I move to approve the resolution to designate Assistant Superintendent for Finance to prepare the tentative budget for the 2024 fiscal year.
Carmichael,
Batson, second.
second.
All right. It's a contest.
I'll give it to Jim.
Roll call, please.
Hessel,
Aye.
Kulkarni,
Aye.
Rooney,
Aye.
Batson,
Aye.
Benjamin,
Aye.
Carmichael.
Aye.
Drumkey.
Aye. All right, motion passes. The record timing on the item out of F and F.
Fairly straightforward.
Done with for action.
Okay, item 5 for discussion, for board policies, we have a first set, of policies for first reading.
So these policies were discussed in program and personnel. That's first reading, and these policies are part of the review process from Illinois Association of School Boards press policy. There are 2 sets coming, so we split section 2, 4, and 5 into the first set, and then section 6, 7, and 8 will be coming. And as our procedure is that we do 2 readings, so we went over these in P&P. We'll read them in this session, and then board can take action in January. And if there's any changes to them, we'll make those changes before January, and we can still make changes in January before they are officially approved on any wording. And again, this is a big change, not big change, big update in the policies due to Faith's law, which, you know, is a good thing for the protection of our students, and putting that into place. And so because of Faith's law in Illinois, that was passed for the protection of our students, a lot of these policies, including 5120 employee ethics, was updated. So there is, with that law too, not only are the policies updated, but there's also educational pieces for our staff. So I do want to point that out. This is, you know, important policies being updated.
Great. Any discussion? Okay, we'll move on to item 6, board comments and events. We recently attended the Illinois Association of Schools Joint Annual Conference and attended several workshops and seminars, and we thank our community for the support in our continuing education and make us better board members so that we can better serve our students and teachers and community. So thank you for giving us that opportunity. Is there anything anyone wanted to share from that event or any other events that you might have attended, association events or learning that might have taken place?
I particularly enjoyed the career pathways, that was, the Lake Zurich district. It was, pretty eye-opening, and I saw a lot of, like, I think I've passed you guys some of the materials, and I think, yeah, goes without saying, but I'm sure you guys are talking to them also to, lessons learned, and they gave a lot of ideas of what you should do and what you shouldn't do, and I think it's important to learn all of that, but I'm really pumped to hear all of this.
I enjoyed the triple I quite a bit, as I normally do, having attended many of those. Couple highlights for me was I intentionally tried to attend a few of our neighboring districts' presentations. Mundelein did a really nice presentation on related to equity. Hawthorne did a presentation on some planning. I also attended a presentation by my recent alma mater, Western Illinois University, on it, like administrative shortages, that kind of thing. I especially enjoyed walking through the gallery of educational environments, which on one panel featured Vernon Hills High School and the recent projects that were completed here by our and featuring our construction firm and our engineer, our architect, thank you, STR. That was a surprise walking down there. So yeah, that was great. I've also in the past couple of weeks attended a couple of things for EdRed, did the quarterly board member meeting that they're hosting now. And then this last Friday was an interesting one. I sit on the safety and security ad hoc committee for EdRed. And we had an interesting presentation from the state police on a representative from the state police on the clear and present danger requirements, laws that have gone into effect. So that was an interesting presentation. I learned a lot about that. So I think that's something that, maybe we can share a little more on at some point in time. And then this past week, I also attended a conference in New Jersey, actually related to my my job, but it also is relevant to D128, and it was a tech and learning event. But one of the things that we did was break up into groups. We had a group of about 12 of us that were brainstorming if we had no restrictions on budget or politics or anything else, what would the school of the future look like? And that was an interesting, sort of collaborative event. And we had different groups and we all competed to see who came out with the most interesting new school. And then just quickly, I'll sort of cover my ISB report as well. I attended on our behalf the delegate assembly. And it was pretty, typical delegate assembly. Everything that was recommended was passed. There was one item that was actually called up that they didn't recommend passing, that the committee didn't recommend passing, was called up, but never got past the call to vote. So it pretty much went as we had discussed in a meeting prior to that event. So just to bring you up to speed on that. So no surprises. All right.
The one that really stuck out in my mind was that Paul Tim guy. Oof, man, does he know school security? And we have hired him.
Mm-hmm.
And we have that Raptor system.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the very first thing he talked about, was like, got to get rid of those little things. They don't stick on, and they identify you, but if they fall off, then you're walking around the building without an identifier on. And then he went through a series of like, I would just have different cards for every day, randomized colored cards, hand them the colored card. If anybody asks, you just hold your colored card, it says visitor. Next day, it's a different color, but it's never the same color. And it's like, oh, well, that's really simple. But the thing that he said that I thought was profound is that we run these active shooter drills. And it's always like in the second hour class. And he said he would follow the law and do what the law says, but he would also implement these stop and think drills where there would be a signal that says, this is a drill, stop where you are. And it can happen at any point during the day. And then just say, if there was a situation right now, what would you do? Because one day you might be in the bathroom and one day you might be in a classroom and one day you might not even be in the building, be outside. Like it just has the students think about how they would respond in a variety of situations. And I thought that was rather powerful. I don't know how we would go about implementing that or if the principals are interested in it, but a professional recommended it as an idea and I was intrigued by it.
We have in the past done a few drills during passing periods or just right before the start of class, and then even with during lunch periods. I know that doesn't go over well with some of the kids during that lunch, but
But
it's
still, what would you do? You don't
Yeah.
have to make them go anywhere or do anything. Just stop and think
so
about
we
it.
have done it at different times, so it's not always during the same period.
Right.
So
Which is commendable.
I do the stop and think one is interesting because then it's a shorter drill
Right.
time. They're not going through the whole thing, but hey, where are you now? Where would you go? What are your next steps? So
And I think as a teacher, I would have said after that, so did anybody have any thoughts during that drill? Like, did anybody have any problems? Take a couple minutes of class time, but
I agree that it's a good mental exercise. And I would sadly also comment that many of our students and teachers have probably done that exercise in their own heads, just
Sure.
day to day. But I think to make it more purposeful and deliberate, I would agree that that's probably a good thing to draw into consciousness.
It could be for a lot of reasons too. It could be,
Sure.
okay, if there was a
Absolutely.
tornado that just hit the building.
Right,
Where
absolutely.
would you go? Or if there's a,
One of the parts of our new, relatively new rape aggression defense RAD curriculum is the reason we went with that program was that it really emphasizes students wherever they go, having a mindset of where are my safety points, where are my danger points, and maintaining throughout their life when they're in public places and things, a mindset of being safe and identifying things like potential exits and things like that. So that's kind of to your
Great.
point, it trains them to stop and think in multiple locations that they go to throughout their day and their life.
Glad to hear that. I could talk for hours. No,
No offense, but please don't.
I said no right away.
Anybody else have anything they want to share?
Did everybody else go? I'm
No,
sorry.
but not, we don't, everybody doesn't have to go. It's totally
I mean,
optional.
you and I attended, did you talk about the one session? So we attended I attended several sessions from Brian and David Braun, both, I would say, experts in collective bargaining in the state of Illinois, father and son team. They each put on separate presentations, but they had some great things to say about current trends and, you know, ways that the process doesn't necessarily have to be adversarial. And they were very entertaining about it. They took a somewhat dry topic and made it very entertaining.
They did, the title was
10 things
10 reasons
things
not to hate.
hate.
10 reasons not to hate collective bargaining, right?
Yeah, not to hate collective bargaining. Yeah.
You did a pretty
We'll
good job.
play on the movie / Shakespeare, you know. And then I attended Saturday afternoon, I attended the roundtables, really more geared towards educators and administrators, but a very dear friend of mine from growing up was running one of the panels. So she invited me to go, and it was a little bit like a speed dating thing, but amazing how much information there was in that one room. Just flowing and great connections being made. So that was actually really fun to see as a school board member and not someone who wasn't in education, to watch them, how they were, you know, forming their connections and learning some great things. So it's a great weekend.
I attended school law. Don't be surprised.
For those that don't know.
And
you are
actually, it
both an
was
educator
our
and a
firm.
lawyer.
It was one of the attorneys in the firm that represents the district, and it was basically pitfalls. These are the pitfalls. These are the danger areas to be expecting in the coming years, decades, and very informative.
Can I just add one general comment? What I found most in the entire time I was there was that we are doing things really well in this district. Our principals are to be commended. Our administration is to be commended. Our teachers are to be commended, and our students are. Like, there's a lot going right, because I heard a lot going wrong. I'd be like, no, we don't have that problem.
Every year I come away feeling that way.
So,
Okay.
kudos to all. Keep doing it.
And I will add to that, that our board does well too. You hear a lot of stories from other districts that,
Yeah.
you know, have challenges in that way. And, you know, very proud of what we do.
Even districts that have troublesome boards still have great things going on in the buildings. And I want to echo Don's comments. Kudos to both our principals and everybody in the buildings who are actually doing the work with the students, because that's where the excellence is happening. Thank you.
I just wanted to add how much I value the time that we're able to spend together professionally as a unit, kind of all doing our own things throughout the day, but then coming together for some professional socialization, and how enjoyable that time is, and how I really feel that it just assists so much in our ability to be synergistic and energized and really approach things knowing that everyone's bringing their best intentions to everything that we do. And so it's always heartwarming to be able to spend time with you all outside of the boardroom, if you will. And so thank you for always making it so wonderful. And the DLT, it's always a great time to spend time with them.
I did want to add, though, I did have the pleasure of going to LHS's the one act plays. I mean, so impressed with their creativity and their passion. And if you ever get a chance to go to it, I highly recommend it.
Along those lines, I'm looking forward to the holiday concert tomorrow. I know a number of us have signed up to go to this senior event and the holiday concert. And I also am always.
I went to
impressed.
Libertyville's last year and cried.
Oh,
It's really good.
well, I'll let you know.
It's beautiful.
I'll let you know at our next meeting whether or not I cried, but I am always impressed with the quality of the fine arts at both schools. And I'm really looking forward to being there. So.
I mean, to think that they did that on their own, wrote, directed, staged, designed. It just was that their passion was palpable.
Going to a presentation tomorrow morning about the lake bank restoration project that will be going on, or is proposed to be going on. Are you going to be there, Tom? Or do you know anything about it?
I have to be at our district leadership team meeting tomorrow morning.
Can I write you a pass?
I do know about the meeting tomorrow, and our team is ready to roll.
Yeah, I got an advance copy, and man, have they done a good job of figuring some things out. But they want to help the lake go through a restoration project.
I think I'll be seeing you there tomorrow.
Oh, you're gonna go?
Yeah.
Good.
Well, now we are on the 4-hour mark, so
Yeah,
I'm
let's go.
going to pass it to Kara Benjamin for a brief CDL report so that we can get everybody home.
Super brief. Just that we met last Wednesday, sorry, on the 7th. We approved the proposed 3-year CDL Teachers Union contract, which includes the 22-23 school year. So that was good. We voted to recommend an MOU with both the Teachers Union and then the Support Staff Union as well for a tiered attendance bonus. Like many organizations during the deep winter months, attendance can be challenging. You have a lot of people who are ill or children who are ill. And so kind of in addition to this other attendance bonus that we offer our CDL teachers, we kind of put this as an additional, reward for just trying your best to be there, trying your best to stay healthy, whatever it might be. And so there was a lot of excitement amongst the teachers for having that opportunity. And then we also had a presentation on climate and culture within our CDL faculty. And sadly, there was very little participation. So we were all expecting some very usable data, but unfortunately participation was under 50%, and that didn't yield usable data.
which kind of opened up a broader conversation about how might we encourage our faculty and staff to partake in these surveys and provide us with better data. We also had a presentation including information on social and emotional wellness and enrollment stats, which, by the way, I think I came to you earlier in the school year expressing how in need CEDAL was of, classroom instructors, hearing and vision itinerants, school nurses, paraprofessionals, and we have closed that staffing gap tremendously. We're not totally staffed, but if you're interested in more specific numbers, I can get those to you. So it has much improved, and so there's been a lot of celebration about that too. There was also a presentation on the upcoming tuition reset, which will affect our district as we are member districts and we pay into CEDAL to support students who are unable to attend school within our buildings, and that's why we kind of use this co-op situation of CEDAL to get services and education that they can use off-site. And so let's see, it says we will do this. This will kind of happen after district goal setting for programs and services, as well as considering key feedback from member districts. So I believe Brian and Kelly were actually, and was there one other individual? Just you?
Kelly and I attended the.
And so you
planning session.
probably offered some feedback already. It sounds like that may be ongoing. But again, segued into a larger discussion about CEDAL strategic plan and next steps. Additionally, a board member who hailed from North Chicago gave us a presentation just on her school district in general and a celebration that they were focusing on within their school district, which was a brand new middle school that had been very graciously donated by the AbbVie Corporation. And it was just remarkable and really exciting to share, her pride for their district's new facility, which gave me the idea that I would like to at some point present to the CEDAL board about our transitions pathways facility. So I will hopefully be working with Kelly. I don't think she knows this yet, so she's listening. Kelly, here's an idea to create maybe a small presentation to share with our board. People can see what we're doing in our district and how we've taken back our transition program here. That's it. Thank you very much. Sure.
One other announcement, I was able to participate with the District 70 Libertyville Strategic Planning Session a few weeks ago. There were about 50 of us in the middle school gym or elementary gym, I take that back, Friday night and during the day on Saturday. And they had already adopted their mission and their strategic goals, and they were asking for us to help identify possible action steps. So similar to what some of the things we were talking about here tonight, and they are going to be putting the bow on that. So their strategic plan will be from 2023 to 2028, just like ours. So it'll be nice to know we're partners with them in the strategic planning process. And some of the same things that we identified were high on their list as well.
They were lucky to have you.
It was a very well run and energetic evening, and they were celebrating the things they do well and very open to thinking about things they could do differently and to help more kids be even more successful.
Anybody else have anything they want to share before we move on to future agenda items? Okay, future agenda items. There are a number listed for January, February, and March. If anybody has any thoughts of things we shall add to that list, you can state that now or hold your peace and contact the appropriate district administrator with your input.
Just a reminder, the next board meeting, not the committee, but a board meeting is on a different day.
Thank you.
Right.
So
Right.
yes,
It's a
it's not
Tuesday.
the fourth Monday. of
24th,
January.
actually.
Yes, it is.
It is. Happy birthday.
I'll remember that.
It is the Tuesday. Great. With no further ado, may I please have a motion to adjourn?
Batson, so moved.
Rooney, second.
Whenever you're ready, roll call, please. Oh, voice vote. I'm sorry, you have to remind me. Everybody in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays?
One of the-
Meeting is adjourned.
There's